Supremacy Games. Chapter 1276-1300. 1276 Stealing Elder Dragon's Royal Gemstone. It was clear to all that Lord Shiva had gone through Felix's memories while he was showing them his own to understand his reason for being here. Obviously, he didn't see everything but only the key points related to him. Leave him be. Don't take his words to heart. Just because he doesn't use his brain and act as unhinged as he wanted, he expects everyone to be the same. Thor said with an irritated tone. Felix nodded in understanding as he kept looking at Lord Shiva's empty chair. He already knew that getting his elemental manipulation wasn't going to be easy, but he didn't expect it would get this complex. While both of them seemed to have the same goal, it was clear that Lord Shiva saw no hope in Felix to actually deal with those beings. Still, this didn't change anything as Felix already knew that he was nowhere near touching those beings. I guess I have to prove to him that I deserve his elemental manipulation. Felix hadn't even completely accepted Lord Shiva as the news about his genocide was still raw in his mind. Who knows, he might never accept it as he wasn't as indifferent and cold-blooded to life as primogenitors. But, for the sake of his goals, Felix wasn't planning on letting this or anything stop him. I will get my revenge even if I had to hold hands with the devil himself. Felix remarked coldly. A week later. The situation seemed to have cooled down a bit in the consciousness space as the tenants returned to their daily routines, though, it was obvious that the primogenitor's mood was still down the gutter. To not affect her other clones' projects, Lady Sphinx kept the heartbreaking news about her existence on this clone alone. As for Thor and Hormungandr, they seemed less reactive and always had deep frowns on their faces as they played chess together non-stop. Meanwhile, Lord Shiva could be seen chilling with Carbuncle as they smoked cigars and drank alcohol while floating softly on the peaceful consciousness ocean. Carbuncle was already in depressive mode due to his wife not being with him and was used to numbing it down with those substances, so, this wasn't a new experience for him. The atmosphere here is really depressing. Asna commentated as she sat next to Felix and watched those respected elders resemble walking zombies. They just need time and they will eventually adapt to their reality. Felix replied, they might never accept it, but they will continue living. True. Asna nodded, I guess they have decided to keep the information to themselves. As they should. Felix knitted his eyebrows. Most of the primogenitors are passing their time with the games to get some entertainment. If they ever heard of their F***ed-up purpose for existence, some of them will most definitely uproot the entire alliance to vent their anger. Felix was all for keeping this kind of damaging information in the shadows. It would really be the biggest irony to have the SG Alliance destroyed the moment he took over its leadership. Well, you better get strong enough quick to protect it. Asna warned, I doubt it will remain hidden forever. Even if Felix's masters didn't open their mouths, Lord Shiva possessed an AP bracelet of his own and could access the UVR whenever he desired. With his unpredictable personality, there was no telling if he would just group up all of his peers and lay the truth on them. That's why I'm making my move on Elder Dragon's Royal Gemstone much sooner than I planned, Felix responded as he switched his focus to his main consciousness. He could be seen traveling through the Void Realm at an unprecedented speed towards Icarius Galaxy, the land of the dragons. Felix planned on waiting a couple of months until Elder Dragon's death wasn't as impactful before making his move on his Royal Gemstone. He believed that the royal clans would somewhat drop their guards on protecting it from thievery. After all, none of them knew that Felix could consume royal gemstones, which translated to him having no need for them. But now? He had no such luxury. After 7 more days on the road, he finally reached the capital planet Zuham and most specifically, the Black Dragon clan region. He had placed a spy on Elder Dragon's royal gemstone and he was updating him with information about its location and the 4 clans' situation on a daily basis. The royal gemstone is kept under the Black Clan's protection temporarily due to the Elder Dragon belonging to the clan. Felix thought to himself, but, no decision has been made yet on who to accept and absorb the royal gemstone. Based on his spies' intel, the 4 dragon clans had decided that the new leader would be the one absorbing the royal gemstone, as it would help him immensely in his progression. Unsurprisingly, clan heads Igos and Azastirth had the biggest chance of becoming new leaders, as they were considered the strongest in their race. Since the dragons were in desperate need of a strong leader to keep them on a leash, the 4 clans had no intentions of doing another ceremony to pick from rising youngsters like Anastasia or Kotsus. It's been decided that Igos, Azastirth, and Bimid are going to be challenging each other 2 days later in public duels. Felix didn't know whether to laugh or feel bad for them at the thought that their reward would be taken by him while they were battling for it. "Shall we start?" Candace asked after stopping above the royal gemstone. Felix was able to see it through Candace's consciousness link. The purplish royal gemstone was perched on the pedestal above a polished wood that was positioned in the middle of a dimly lit room. It was protected with a clear container that was tightly sealed to keep out dust, moisture, and would-be thieves. The walls were crowded with shelves upon shelves of books, enigmatic antiques, and rare treasures, and the air was thick with the musty smell of old books and antiquated artifacts. Multiple humanoid dragons were stationed at each corner of the chamber, keeping an eye out for any potential dangers. They seem extremely vigilant and ready to take action at any time despite the room being silent. "We have to be quick and silent." Felix spoke with Candace as he beamed an exact replica of Elder Dragon's royal gemstone. As a gemstone elementalist, it was extremely easy to create a perfect copy. Since the royal gemstone was harvested from Elder Dragon while he was in his humanoid form, it was barely 30 centimeters long. "I am ready when you are," Candace said with a serious tone. "Let's go." Felix gave the order immediately after releasing a wave of green-colored flames from a scroll and pushed it inside a newly opened void rift, making it impossible for the guards to spot the rift. "What the?" Just as the guards were about to react to this sudden assault, Felix swiftly manifested a massive concept destruction trident that engulfed the entire chamber. This caused the guards to drop to the ground, instantly akin to corpses after being touched by the concept destruction trident. Not bothering to glance at them, Felix snapped his finger as he uttered in his mind, "Spatial displacement." A grey hexagon appeared above the fake gemstone and another one above the real royal gemstone. In the blink of an eye, both gemstones switched their positions without needing Felix to even touch the glass. Felix didn't take off after getting the royal gemstone as he wanted to completely erase his existence. He flicked 4 spherical potions into the mouth of each guard and made them forcefully drink it. Those potent potions were capable of deleting the previous 1 minute of the target's memories without much of a side effect. Then, he retracted the containers and uttered again in his mind, "Construction cube." The blue cube engulfed the entire room and reconstructed everything that was destroyed by Felix. In this case, it was nothing more than the guards' blood. Felix had forced them into passing out instantly by cutting off the blood from their brains. Since the entire operation's lifespan was less than a second, before their bodies could actually be in real danger, he reconstructed their bloodstream as before and took off without leaving behind me any trace. In less than a minute, the 4 guards began waking up one after the other, feeling somewhat muddled like they had just taken a short nap. "Did something happen? I don't know. Why do I feel like I am missing something?" The guards looked at each for a mere second before their hearts skipped a beat. In a swift manner, they all switched their focus in the direction of the royal gemstone. When they saw that it was there, their unsettling feeling somewhat went away, but as dragons, they trusted their instincts greatly. So, even when the situation seemed normal and they had no memories of something bad happening, they still decided to check their AP bracelet recordings. Look and behold! The only thing that was recorded in the past minute was sudden green flames appearing from the ceiling before the screens went dark. What in the world? 1277 No evidence equals no case. The guards gulped a mouthful in agitation after realizing that they had been attacked without a single memory of it happening. It must be those green F***ers. We have to inform the clan head. Since the only clue in their possession was green flames, it made them jump straight into accusing their rivals, the Green Dragon clan. The royal gemstone is still here and the alarm hasn't been activated. One of the guards sighed in relief. They must have retreated after realizing that they won't make it out of here alive. The glass barrier might seem simple, but those guards knew that it could detect even the faintest touch. The moment it was touched, it would release a clan-wide alarm, causing everyone to drop whatever they were doing and participate in a strict martial lockdown. Only the clan head was capable of disabling the alarm as it was linked with Queen Ai and it accepted only his permission. In addition, the royal gemstone would instantly get pulled into a different sealed-shut area, making it impossible to reach it without spatial abilities. So, the guards had to inform their clan head about this assault so he could allow them to check on the royal gemstone safely. After the news made it to the clan head's office, it didn't take him even a couple of seconds before appearing inside the chamber with a cold expression. "Move!" he ordered with an icy tone as he walked towards the glass. Without needing to even touch the gemstone, he knew immediately that it was a fake one as it wasn't releasing even the faintest of Elder Dragon's aura. Instead of exploding into a raging tirade, he closed his eyes shut and took a deep breath. Then, he turned around to face the guards and ordered with a chilling look, "Tell me exactly what happened." They narrated the details of the assault, which weren't much in the first place. The initial posting of this chapter occurred via N0V3L.B1JN. This caused clan head Igos to get even more pissed off as there weren't many clues for them to work with. "If it's really a green clan scum, find him this instant. He shouldn't have gone far," he ordered with a wave of his hand as he walked outside of the chamber. While the black dragons were seen flying around the palace with stone-cold expressions, trying to find out the culprit, they had no clue that he was already millions of kilometers away. "I doubt that would have worked," Asna commented. "The black lizard isn't an idiot, and if he confronted the green lizard, he is bound to find out that he has no relation to the robbery." It was quite easy for the clan head Azastirth to make an alibi for all of his people with Queen Ai's involvement, plus, Queen Ai could back him off if he denied having any relation to the robbery even when Felix tried his best to put it on them. "I know." Still, Felix didn't seem too bothered by this. He already discerned that it would be impossible to put the blame on the Green Clan. "I used the Green Flame Scrolls for one purpose," Felix shared calmly. "When those clans' heads figure out that I am the biggest suspect, I would be able to use the Green Flames in my favor." "I see, cheeky." Asna giggled after understanding his endgame. Felix had left absolutely no proof behind that connected him to the robbery. This meant if they came for him, they would be accusing him without a piece of evidence, and to make matters worse for them, they would be doing it while they had proof that the Green Clan had a relation to the robbery. Unless Felix confessed, they could do nothing to him but continue suspecting him without any result. As expected, after a day went by, Felix was urgently asked to join the 10 rulers' assembly. When he took his chair, he saw the 4 clan heads standing at the center with not-so-pleased expressions. Only Kirsoon seemed to be somewhat matching his peers' energy instead of being actually pissed off. This was understandable as he already accepted his fate of never touching either the leadership position or the royal gemstone. So, he really didn't give a sh*t if Felix took it or not. "What's the emergency?" Felix asked with a stern tone. "I was forced to interrupt my training." "As embarrassing as it sounds, Elder Dragon's royal gemstone has been stolen from us," clan head Bimit shared. "How can that be possible?" Felix acted surprised. "Who will even be daring enough to steal it?" "That's what we are here to find," clan head Igos said with narrowed eyes. "Since you came here, it only means that it wasn't an insider job." Queen Alfreda inquired, "Have you made a thorough investigation?" "We left no corner untouched when it came to our people," clan head Azastirth answered as he took a side glance at Felix. "We are certain that it's an outsider job, and we believe that the culprit had to be strong enough to handle 4 royal dragons in less than a second while simultaneously stealing the royal gemstone without touching it." After he was done speaking, clan head Bimit showed a holographic scene of the royal gemstone chamber. Then, he narrated what happened to the guards and all of the possible theories for the robbery to be carried out perfectly. The most logical theory was considering a partnership between a space worm and a Void Nation citizen. One had the strength to knock out the royal dragons in less than a second and the other was able to steal the royal gemstone. When this theory was presented, everyone turned towards Felix as they were smart enough to realize that it was far more believable that he would have carried out the job alone. Accusing me? Interesting. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. You have 3 seconds to confirm your accusation and present a piece of evidence. Otherwise, don't waste my time on such nonsense. The 10 rulers turned to look back at the clan heads with looks of anticipation, seemingly wondering if they really had something against Felix. Too bad, their expectations were high for nothing. King Maxwell, no one is accusing you of anything. Clan head Igos said calmly, we really believe that one of your void citizens must have gone rogue and hired a space worm to rob us. Elder Dragon's royal gemstone isn't just the dragon's heritage but also the alliance. We really hope that we can join forces to apprehend the culprit. So, that's their approach. Felix chuckled in his mind. While the clan heads and even the 10 rulers had the biggest suspicion of Felix, no one dared to accuse him directly as his current position wasn't to be f***ed with. It was the same as a citizen accusing his king of stealing his money right in front of him. His authority was just too threatening for anyone to attempt messing with him without expecting bad consequences. I am still displeased with the fact that you are accusing my good people of such a hideous crime just because they were considered evil before. The worst part? Elder Dragon's royal gemstone is useless for my people as it can only be sold for money. My people lived for 100 million years before you were even born. You think they care about money? Felix chided with a stern tone, but still I will play along and use Queen AI to investigate every one of them to give you peace of mind. But, when the results come back and I'm proven right, I expect the 4 of you to send a written apology to all of my citizens, are we clear? Mother Fasterisker, of course, you will be this confident when you know that you are the culprit. Bastard! It's really him. Clan head Igos and his peers got peeved but they didn't dare show it in the open. The 10 rulers were really useless in this matter as without evidence, they couldn't back them even if they wanted. Send me your response to my email, I have already wasted too much time on this. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix teleported away, leaving the 3 clan heads seething in anger within. They would have been even more pissed off if they knew that Felix was rushing to continue devouring their precious Elder Dragon's royal gemstone. You really are a menace. Asna giggled as she watched her man absorbing the royal gemstone without an ounce of shame. 1278 Losing hatred, gaining hatred. While Felix was spending hours and hours of his time absorbing Elder Dragon's potent royal gemstone, he left one of his clones in the UVR to handle the investigation of his people to get rid of the clan heads off his back once and for all. With Queen AI's assistance and the low numbers of void citizens, the process ended in no time and the results were sent to the 4 clan heads. It didn't please them one bit. Alas, they realized that nothing much could be done to Felix anymore unless they managed to somehow find a piece of evidence or he came forth and confessed. As for making him stand in a trial before Queen AI and see if she would back him up, they knew that Felix wouldn't agree to it without evidence. So, this situation ended with them writing apology letters to the void citizens with their hearts burning in anger and resentment. Sometime later, Felix could be seen logging into the UVR and entering his private training room. Let's see how big of an enhancement I will get, he said with a look of anticipation as he massaged his hand while walking towards the testing machine. He knew that the enhancement wasn't going to be even close to the bloodline replacement, but he could feel that it would be much better than both Devourer and Dragon marks by miles. As he got in front of the machine, he swiftly whipped out his fist into a lightning bolt, smashing the red pad into oblivion. Boom! The feedback was perfect as the shockwave traveled many kilometers like he just threw a nuke. Felix retracted his illuminating fist and glanced at the screen. In a short moment, a final number was displayed on it. 808,487 bf. Geez. It boosted your physical strength by a whole 100 kbf even at this high level. Candace was the first to react with widened eyes. Well, the stone is born after absorbing most of the ancient dragon's royal gemstones. Felix replied with a wide satisfied smile. Knowing that getting just 500 bf increase at this level was extremely difficult made this result even greater. Felix wasn't having any complaints at all. He is now only 200 kbf away from the 1 million line. If Sphinx managed to find a way for him to hit another replacement and he made sure to add more marks on his cultivations, I don't think it will be impossible anymore to become a deity without origin realm. Thor discussed this with his peers. That's a lot of ifs, but it seems somewhat possible now. Hormungandr nodded in agreement. When Felix was 300,000 bf away from the million line, no one bothered entertaining the idea that he could reach it even with another replacement enhancement. That's because the last 100,000 was the same as a thick swamp that wouldn't allow a person to even move their legs an inch. Elder Dragon had spent an entire month devouring tens of thousands of royal gemstones and he still didn't manage to pull it off naturally. But now? There was really hope. Though, this hope relied heavily on Lady Sphinx's ability to find a way for Felix to add another primogenitor's bloodline to his 1% human bloodline. I already found a couple of methods, but each one had its own risks and sacrifices to pull it off. I am focusing on filtering the best one now. Lady Sphinx replied calmly. Since her clones were oblivious to the truth about their existence, they were carrying the experiments as normal. That's great to hear. Thor wanted to get happy, but he found out that he just couldn't do it. It wasn't that he lost faith in Felix or anything, but he just couldn't feel the same way about his enmity with the Darkins now that he knew it was the perfect source of entertainment for those beings. It made him feel like he wasn't fighting for himself, but for the sake of making those beings amused, which was really a massive blow to his pride. Hormungandr and also Fenrir started having such thoughts. This was a normal reaction as they were clearly having an existential crisis. Though, Felix didn't seem to give a sh*t about any of this as his hatred towards the Darkins wasn't affected in the slightest. In fact, it was getting stronger and stronger each day that went by. Now, he wasn't even fighting for the sake of his masters, but for his own revenge, and nothing was going to make him stop. Speaking about the Darkins, they could be seen gathered in Mananangul's cozy living room in the UVR, discussing Felix's irritating movements. We can't catch up to him like this. We have to set up a trap and wait for him to come on his own. Saurus said with an irritated tone. His reaction was understandable as just when they began to narrow Felix's location in the Federation, he picked up his stuff and arrived at Icarius Galaxy in less than 2 weeks. Meanwhile, their trip was going to take months. The moment they decided to embark on the trip, Felix was seen moving to another location again at an incalculable speed. This really was about to drive them insane. The trial exploration run is going to happen in less than 2 months. Wendigo suggested with a cold tone, he is most definitely going to attend it with the rest of the 10 rulers and Inner Circle Alliance leaders. His current direction does point to the Great Void. Mananangul mentioned. The only issue is that the area is going to be crowded. Wendigo said. That's not an issue, that's a bonus. Mananangul said with a faint creepy smile. Without much discussion, the decision had been made. Saurus, contact Lord Dune and offer him another trade to create a wormhole directly to the Great Void. Wendigo said with an icy smirk, Mananangul has to be there much earlier to welcome him. As for us, it's time that we take our leave. While they finished plotting one of the most sinister assassination attempts, Felix could be seen traveling in the Void Realm towards the Great Void, oblivious that he was heading in direction of his damnation. 1 month later, as Felix exited from the Void Rift with Nimmo on his shoulder, he came across an isolated planet unlike any other. The initial posting of this chapter occurred via N0V3L.B1JN. From space, it looked like a swirling mass of blues, purples, and pinks, with clouds of glittering gas and a faint aurora dancing in the sky. This was considered the last discovered planet that was the closest to the Great Void. Worthy of its title, Felix looked behind it and the only thing that came into his line of sight was pitch darkness. There wasn't a single star in front of him even when he zoomed to the limit of his vision. Happy to see your end results. Thor snickered at Lord Shiva, who was seen chilling in isolation. Lord Shiva merely gave him the middle finger with all of his four hands without bothering to even glance at him. Tisk. Thor clicked his tongue in vexation and focused back on Felix, who seemed to be casting a spatial spell. In less than a second, Felix's body looked like nothing happened to it, but at the same time, it went through a drastic change. You used spatial imprisonment on yourself again. Asna wondered, isn't better to use concept destruction trident? The trident consumes too much of my energy and it won't be worth it as a mere precaution. Felix replied as he cast a levitation spell on himself and descended into the planet. Felix had no clue if he would be targeted by his enemies during this gathering, but he was smart enough to use some defensive measures for extra safety. After all, the location and the time had been published months ago, which he knew was the perfect recipe for disaster. Although he understood that Lord Koas should be scaring the Darkins into not making a move on him, he wasn't foolish to put his safety on hopes and prayers. The death of his people taught him the hard way to always think 10 steps ahead when dealing with the Darkins. In fact, if he wasn't the Grand Supreme and his presence was a must during the trial run, he wouldn't have even bothered to come here. As Felix made entry inside the planet, he noticed that the atmosphere was thick and hazy, making it difficult to see more than a few meters in front of him. Still, he continued on his journey as he was flying in the direction of the location given to him by the 10 rulers. In a few minutes at best, he arrived at a gigantic illuminated glass dome that seemed like a beacon inside a foggy ocean. This was Zalagzar City, a property owned by the Alliance collectively and was habituated by only permitted individuals. This was the gathering location for the 10 rulers, inner circle leaders, outer circle leaders, and other important figures in the Alliance. After Felix entered the city without much of an issue, he flew towards the center plaza, where the Alliance headquarters was situated. On his way there, he noticed that the city was heavily guarded by the strongest fighters in the entire Alliance. There were even royal dragons and night guards patrolling the city. This was understandable when most of the authoritative figures in the Alliance were gathered in one location. You finally arrived, Bradham. 1279 extra, cautious. As Felix was heading toward the central plaza, he had no idea that he was being watched by a werewolf in a guard's outfit. This was none other than Mananangel, using his perfect control over blood to recreate the perfect disguise for his assassination. He knew that if he used his appearance, Lord Koas would have already busted him and gotten rid of him before he could even step foot in the city. The initial posting of this chapter occurred via N0V3L.B1JN. Meanwhile, Saurus and Wendigo were watching all of this through a consciousness link mirror as the real Mananangel was with them. They had already crossed the Great Void and settled on the nearest planet to them to focus on carrying the mission first. This little sh*T is really something else. Saurus cursed after noticing that Felix was using a spatial ability to keep him in a different dimension. He hadn't reached this far without being extremely cautious of his safety. Wendigo narrowed his eyes. What's the move now? You can't use your blood abilities or even your spiritual pressure? Saurus asked, knowing that being in a different dimension isolated Felix completely from them. Mananangel could use his spiritual pressure, but its prowess would be lowered significantly before reaching Felix. By then, he might survive it. We wait, he has no idea that we are here, he is just being extra cautious and guarded. Mananangel spoke calmly, the exploration trial here will take weeks if not more and he has to be here to supervise it personally. I guess this is really the only way left. Saurus agreed. He knew that Felix's spatial spells needed fuel to sustain them. Since the spatial imprisonment locked him in a different dimension, he wouldn't be able to absorb spatial elemental energy to recharge his tank. This meant that he was bound to exit the dimensional lockdown eventually for a quick recharge. That's their chance to attack. Don't let go of your murderous intent and evil thoughts during this period. There is a high chance he has inherited Lord Shiva's evil vision. Wendigo reminded with a solemn tone. I know. Manananggal was an extremely calm and composed individual compared to even the primogenitors. So, even when he was burning with hatred and anger just like his peers, he was able to make it disappear with a single finger snap. When Felix passed by Manananggal's disguise, he didn't pick an ounce of threat from him. But, the same couldn't be said about the entity on his shoulder. He, this is interesting. Nemo's alter ego crackled with a creepy smile. As the master of seven sins and evil in general, no matter how much Manananggal was good at hiding his bad intentions, they could never escape Nemo's alter ego's awakened senses. He didn't need his eyes to see the evil aura as he could smell it and feel it suppressed inside of Manananggal the moment Felix passed by him. Since he could sense other people's levels of desires, he recognized that the werewolf was a mere disguise of a much stronger entity. Everything could lie but the pride sin. It's finally my chance to reclaim my identity after putting up with this bastard's torture for the past months. Nemo's alter ego didn't seem like he had any plan of warning Felix about such danger. He would be foolish to do so when he knew that such opportunities were impossible to occur twice. He thought about merging with Nemo so many times before just to save himself from the humiliation of seeing his sacred body getting treated like a fluffy pet by Felix. But, he fought against the urge over and over again. Now, he was rewarded at last. Unfortunately, he waited, and nothing seemed to happen as the werewolf completely ignored Felix's existence. I guess he is waiting for the spatial spell to be removed. Nemo's alter ego reasoned. Fine, I have already waited a long time, this is nothing. Unbeknownst to his alter ego's thoughts, Nemo kept looking around him with a curious expression. His alter ego was capable of hearing Nemo's thoughts, but he couldn't do the same since he was much more powerful than him. He was the awakened version of him after all. You have arrived early, that's quite unexpected of you. Queen Allura giggled as she walked in the direction of Felix after she met him on the headquarters ground floor. You really have a bad misconception of me. Felix acted like he was wronged. Do I? Why does something feel off about you? Queen Allura switched her tone after noticing a weird white line outlining his skin and clothes. When she looked at it a bit more, she recognized it immediately as Felix had used it before in one of his battles. Is this spatial imprisonment? She raised an eyebrow in surprise. Yes. Why are you using it? And even on yourself? It's nothing, I am just being extra safe. Felix smiled. The moment she heard this, Queen Allura's expression turned solemn as she asked telepathically, do you think that someone is going to attack you or the gathering? She knew that if even Felix had to be extra safe and lock himself in a different dimension, then the enemy wasn't to be f***ed with. Don't worry, it's really nothing. I am just indulging in a bit of my paranoia, no need to spread it to others too. Felix comforted her. If you are so sure. Queen Allura still had some doubts about this, but since Felix was insisting that nothing was wrong, then she could only trust him. I will wait for you above, the others should already be waiting for us. Felix changed the subject by flying into the ceiling, knowing that he could go through walls and such akin to a ghost. As he said, most of the 10 rulers and inner circle leaders were already sitting on their seats in a massive hall that resembled a parliament auditorium. When Felix popped up from the ground, it sure caused everyone to quieten down and stare at him speechlessly. Felix ignored their looks and went to stand on his seat, unable to even sit properly in his current condition. Just as Queen Alfreda was about to open her mouth and ask what was on everyone's mind, Felix uttered with a stern tone, I don't want to hear a single word about my condition. Anyone who brought it out will join me. Well, that did the trick as no one dared to open their mouth anymore and were forced to take their discussion telepathically, Felix was just that much scarier than Elder Dragon. Cough, I know that we set the schedule for the trial run in another month, but since most of the 10 rulers and inner circle are here, I suggest we push forward the schedule to the next week. Emperor Local proposed to change the subject. I concur. Me too. Likewise. One by one, the inner circle leaders began agreeing to the proposal as everyone had things to do in their territories and they didn't want to wait an entire month for late arrivals. The only reason the first schedule was placed was for the sake of Felix and the other 10 rulers to make it in time, as their attendance was the most important. I agree. After Felix voiced his agreement as well, the votes came flying in much faster until the decision had the majority of votes even when the absent votes were counted as opposition. It's been decided, the trial run will be occurring next week, make the announcement. After staying behind for a couple of hours to listen to more decisions being made about the trial run, Felix decided to end his day early. Even though he departed, the assembly still carried on without interruption. He might be considered the Grand Supreme and even had 2 votes, but he was still not the alliance's leader and many decisions could be had without his attendance. After Felix exited the hall, he didn't even bother going to his personal palace in the city. He requested Candace to open a void rift and he jumped inside her aircraft. Then, she closed the void rift. When Mananangel, Saurus, and Wendigo saw this from a distance, they were left with no words to describe their current emotions. Only now did it click in their minds that when Felix did something, he made sure that it would be as perfect as possible. In this case, he never had plans of recovering his lost spatial energy in the real world where he could do it under the safety of the Void Realm. This F***ing brat is making this harder than it is. 1280 The trial run. After a couple of days, the Darkins were forced to change their approach as Felix never made a single mistake in weakening his defenses. He didn't even bother logging into the UVR and just spent most of the days in the Void Realm, meditating and hanging out with the tenants in his mind. Let's brainstorm, I refuse to get outsmarted by a brat. Saurus said with an irked tone. As long as he maintains this level of cautiousness, it will be really hard to take him down with our original plan. Wendigo suggested, we have to think outside of the box. In other words, a simple assassination method was no longer working on Felix and they had to come up with something clever to get his head. After spending a few minutes thinking in silence, Mananangel touched his chin thoughtfully before proposing, since it's hopeless to kill him here, how about we take him down after he reaches the other side? But won't we lose his location if we did this and be forced to keep chasing him around again? It will be different. Mananangel smiled, this time we will make sure to be with him wherever he goes. Don't tell me you are planning on bugging his spaceship with a blood drop of yours. Wendigo raised an eyebrow in surprise at his devious strategy. He knew that this had a 100% chance of it succeeding unless Felix had no interest in going to the other side. After all, he was bound to beam his spaceship from his spatial card to use the wormhole connecting them to the other side. He just couldn't reach there by traveling the Void Realm without wasting years if not more. It was one thing to use the Void Realm alone and another to mix it up with wormholes. The boy is cautious all right, but he can't be that cautious to pick wasting multiple years without UVR and in utter loneliness when there is a much simpler choice. Saurus snickered. He was right, Felix never had the thought of crossing the other side by using just the Void Realm, he would have done it long ago if he was that desperate to reach it. But wait, I have seen his spaceship. It's one of the greatest models available and he even customized it with the most expensive systems. Wendigo frowned, I am fairly certain that even a blood drop of yours will get picked up by its scanning system as a foreign object and get either deleted or reported. Since Mananangel required some time to recreate his body from a mere blood drop, this implied that he would get either destroyed instantly or kicked out by the spaceship before he could even meet Felix. That's indeed an issue. Saurus nodded. Mananangel chuckled as he showed them a holographic image of a blood drop. It would have been a problem if we didn't have this. Haha. How did I even forget about this? Saurus and Wendigo laughed simultaneously with a gleeful look as they eyed the spinning blood drop. It was none other than Felix's copied blood drop traded to them by Lord Loki. In the hands of others, it was nothing but a useless drop of blood, but in the hands of the god of blood? He could use it to copy Felix's DNA and bug his spaceship with his blood drop. This would fool even Queen AI since it would recognize the blood drop as if it belonged to Felix. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to use any of Felix's abilities and such. He was merely capable of creating a substanceless imitation. But, it was more than enough to do the trick. This all sounds good and all, but what if the prick left entering the other side until later? Saurus knitted his eyebrows. If he left this place from the Void Realm after the trial run, we are f***ed. He won't leave. Wendigo assured him with a confident tone. He is now considered the spearhead of the Alliance and he made a promise in his coronation speech that he would be leading the Alliance's exploration. This means if the trial run succeeded, he will be forced to stay behind with everyone and prepare for the real exploration quest. That's good to hear. I guess the only way for our plan to go south is the failure of the trial run. Saurus smiled coldly. He understood that the odds of it happening were extremely low as the metal race researchers never put a device on a live trial run unless there was 99% of it working as intended. Time went by and before long the day of the trial run had arrived. The 10 rulers, inner circle leaders, and other attending figures had all taken off toward the decided location in their spaceships. Only Felix traveled through the Void Realm and reached the location almost instantaneously. It was hundreds of thousands of kilometers in the middle of nowhere while leaving the cloudy planet way on the back. In a few minutes at best, spaceships started gathering near Felix, creating a stacked lineup that was pointing directly into the empty Great Void. The first reveal of this chapter happened through N0/Vel B J N. Felix joined Queen Allura's spaceship cockpit and watched a spaceship shaped like a giant bird with enormous wings that extended far beyond its body, giving it the appearance of a majestic phoenix taking flight. Yet, the most unique part about it was a giant silver cube that was placed on top of it. It had somewhat of a camera lens on the surface facing the Great Void. This was the device that everyone's hopes were placed on. Everyone ready? Felix asked calmly as he glanced at tens of holographic screens behind the cockpit's window, each one was showing the face of a race leader. When Felix saw everyone nodding their heads with solemn expressions, he turned his focus to the exploration spaceship and permitted, "Pioneers, you may begin." The moment the order was voiced, the exploration crew started the device under the eyes of the entire Alliance as this event was publicly streamed. The cubic device neither spanned nor did any drastic movement, it just unlocked the camera lens that resembled a living eye. Then, the data was sent back to the crewmates and the leaders on holographic screens. It was instant feedback of billions of mesmerizing illuminating galaxies appearing like a colorful flower field in a paradise. While the image was breathtaking, no one really reacted weirdly to it as all of their advanced telescopes were capable of the same feat. "Start zooming in," Felix ordered. The camera lens started getting narrower and narrower until it turned into a single dot. While it was doing this, the live feed on the screen changed from billions of galaxies into a single one. "Continue," Felix ordered with a solemn look. Now, it was the moment of truth, the real test for the device. The living eye kept turning smaller and smaller until it was barely 1 millimeter long. Everyone glued their eyes on the screens and waited with held breaths in anticipation. After a couple of seconds that seemed like an eternity, the screens finally displayed a high-definition live feed of an actual star and multiple unique planets orbiting it. Clap clap clap! Whoa-ah! Without a single word uttered, everyone spectating the stream began cheering with excited reddened cheeks as they had just found a hidden treasure. "We did it! Give me a high five!" Queen Allura laughed with an upbeat pitch as she placed her hand in front of Felix's face. "It's not over yet. You know I can't touch you in this condition." Felix smiled as he pulled away a little from her hand, knowing that it wouldn't end well for her if she touched him while he was in spatial imprisonment. "I know 3D modeling is left, but this is already enough to help us create a fairly exact wormhole to that solar system. Queen Allura replied. It's best to be accurate in these situations. He is right. High Chieftain Lakaka nodded. It's not the time for celebration yet, as without the 3D modeling, the wormhole can be opened directly in front of the star. It was obvious that this was a bad exit point, as it might end up killing everyone on board the spaceship. Create the solar system 3D model, Felix ordered after the celebration dialed down a bit. The device started doing its magic as it kept taking all the data about the entire solar system from the planet's positions, sizes, light reflection, the distance between them and their star, etc. In a mere few seconds, Queen AI's godly computing power managed to manifest a perfectly minimized 3D hologram of the solar system that reflected the real thing. It even had the real distances, sizes, and all of those numbers written on lines on the hologram. Now we are talking. Felix finally cracked a pleased smile. His delight was shared by everyone watching as they understood that the space worms would be able to pick the exact location of their exit point now without needing to even be there. Where do you want us to exit, my king? The exploration crew captain asked. He was an imitator taking the form of a space worm, allowing him to use their spatial manipulation just like them. Near the third planet. Felix shared with a nostalgic smile as he eyed the third planet that resembled Earth a big deal if it wasn't for its oceans being redder than blood. On it. 1281 The trial run. 2. Tens of space worms got outside of the spaceship and worked together to manifest a singular gigantic wormhole that was connected with that decided exit point. Usually, only one space worm was required to create a wormhole, but to skip the entire Great Void distance, teamwork was a must. Since wormholes consumed large amounts of energy only during their creation and when utilized, having 10 sources of fuel for it was enough to keep it ongoing temporarily until a permanent express wormhole was created. After a couple of hours, the wormhole was finally finished. It took this long because they had to make it big enough for multiple spaceships to enter it simultaneously. You may leave. Felix permitted. The moment the crewman received his permission, they went through the wormhole at a moderate speed. A few seconds later, the spaceship was expelled to the other side of the universe and came to an abrupt halt in the middle of nowhere. When the viewers saw a brilliant red gemstone shimmering from a far distance, they couldn't help but cheer feverishly in the stream chat. They did it! Haha! This is so damn exciting! We have actually reached the other side of the universe. I can't imagine what we will find. This is more than 30% of a newly undiscovered region. The viewers' excitement was shared even by the leaders as they could already see themselves swimming in resources. Explore the red planet and be careful. Roger. Following Felix's command, the crewmen turned their spaceship invisible and traveled with a moderate pace in the direction of the red planet. When they had gotten too close, the red planet's true appearance was shown to everyone. It released somewhat of a sinister feeling that was picked by even commoners, making them feel some sort of innate fear towards it. It was like their souls screaming at them to stay as far as possible from it. Scan it for any signs of life. Felix ordered with a solemn tone. Unlike the rest of the leaders and viewers, Felix had already asked Lady Sphinx about the other side and its habitats. While she didn't tell him about every race that existed there, she told him about its current considered rulers. They were none other than the demon species. She warned him heavily about them as she said that when it came to new races unrelated to primogenitors, the strongest ones were as gifted as the ancient dragons. Based on the planet's sinister atmosphere, Felix had a strong feeling that it was either inhabited by some of them. Looks like it's a deserted planet. Queen Allura uttered as she read the negative results of the scan. Should we have them descend or send one of your people to scout ahead? Emperor Local inquired as he looked at Felix. It's best to be safe. Felix reached out to another Void citizen in the spaceship and ordered, Maki, scout ahead of everyone. As you command. A breathtaking Void succubus with short pink hair and tan skin nodded with a charming smile. However, Just as she opened a void rift and wanted to enter it, her body refused to move even an inch, her teeth started chattering while her face turned as pale as a paper sheet. Maki. Felix frowned in confusion at her reaction. Maki didn't even hear him as her entire body and soul were consumed by a never-felt level of terror. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0v3L.bin. She could neither think nor move, appearing like she was frozen in space under the bewildered eyes of everyone. Maki. Whoosh. The squad's captain hastily closed her void rift from a distance, not daring to get close to it after getting hit by a weaker sensation of what Maki experienced. Thud. The moment the void rift was closed, Maki fell to the ground in a fetus position and kept shivering in fear while mumbling repeatedly, "I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry." Felix and the others were left utterly stunned by the whole situation as no one had a single clue what had just happened. King Maxwell. I am just as confused as you. Before the others could ask Felix, he cut them off with a solemn tone. Felix had seen this kind of fear before in void creatures, which made him come to a scary realization that he found it too hard to accept. Masters, do you think that the Paragon of Sins has awakened? Felix asked. Felix was told a long time ago that the Paragon of Sin's location was situated on the other side of the universe. He never bothered to pay too much attention to it before as he had no intentions of getting close to that area. Unlikely. Lady Sphinx replied, if he has awakened, everyone would have known about it as it is in his nature to stir things up in the universe. I believe your subordinate's reaction resulted from the Paragon of Sin's intense aura. Elder Kraken reasoned, since the Paragon of Sins is slumbering, he has no control over it. As their god, all void creatures are weak against it and could not even think straight when they are under its pressure. I see. Felix nodded with a stern expression. Elder Kraken's reasoning made the most sense as Felix had seen what Nemo's aura could do to Candace and the others. It was literally the Void Nation's Krypoton. It looked like the Paragon of Sin's aura was so intense, it probably covered the entire territory of what was beyond the Great Void. This was enough to showcase the current level of difference between the Paragon of Sins and Nemo even after his awakening. When Felix told his councilmen about this, all of them had the same reaction. We are F***ed. The Ruiner cursed. We won't be able to enter the Void Realm while we are traveling on the other side. Miriam frowned, we will be losing our greatest advantage. Without the Void Realm, the Void Nation would be forced to journey through the other side by using random wormholes or hiring space worms with exorbitant prices. There were other advantages being lost, such as not being able to spy on others and commit perfect assassinations. It's really a massive blow to our nation. Felix sighed, but there is nothing we can do. We are literally walking into the home of your god. Asleep or not, his presence can't be ignored. Felix would be the only one unaffected by this as Nemo was resistant to the Paragon of Sin's aura and he could help him enter and leave the Void Realm as usual. Unfortunately, Maki seems to be ill. Felix addressed the leaders, we can only descend in standard fashion. Felix had no intentions of telling them about the Paragon of Sins and his people's inability to access the Void Realm. Although the leaders were smart enough to realize that Felix wasn't telling them the whole truth, none of them dared to interrogate him publicly. So, they agreed to the decision and watched the spaceship descending on the red planet. As the spaceship went through the crimson thick clouds, the viewer's eyes were allured to a lifeless wasteland that loomed menacingly. It was barren and filled with red mist that resembled blood fog. After the invisible spaceship landed on the ground, the squad of explorers exited from the front gate. It consisted of one of the strongest known fighters in the Alliance. There was a humanoid black dragon, a humanoid white dragon, a winged elf, a shadowborn, a pandian, a spirit fox, and more. Sniff sniff. Is it just me or there is a peculiar revolting energy pulsing through the air? The werewolf spoke while closing his nostrils inside his space helmet. I smell nothing. Likewise. He was the only one who seemed to notice the peculiar energy as others didn't have the same high level of smell as him. I am telling you. Something weird about this planet's atmosphere. The werewolf stressed again. 1282 evil energy. While his teammates weren't taking his finding too seriously, Felix's facial expression turned solemn all of a sudden. Couldn't it be evil energy? Felix was told that the other side's rulers neither manipulate elements nor laws, they could manipulate only one type of unique energy, that was evil energy. If it's evil energy, you better advise them to never take their spacesuits off. Asna warned. Already on it. Felix swiftly ordered the squad, protect your spacesuits with your life. Since the order came from Felix, no one dared to take it lightly, everyone raised their guard to the limit. Is it really that serious? Queen Alfreda asked. The rest of the leaders turned to stare at Felix, knowing that he had multiple all-knowing masters who wouldn't mind sharing information with him, unlike their ancestors. I believe it's evil energy. Felix clarified before anyone could ask, it's a unique type of energy that is born only in environments rich with high levels of pure evil. When I say pure evil, I mean the worst of the worst that your mind can't even fathom. I know evil is bad in nature, but what can evil energy do to them? Emperor Local asked. It is able to corrupt anything it touches, whether alive or not. Felix answered with a stern tone, I believe this planet was once beautiful and warm, but after long exposure to this kind of energy, it was turned into this lifeless, disgusting environment. If our people weren't protected with these highly advanced nano-space suits, they would have gotten corrupted just as badly. What do you mean by corruption? High Chieftain Lakaka questioned, is it like making one have evil thoughts? Evil thoughts? If only it was that simple. Felix shook his head and continued on, when one consumes too much of the evil energy, his mind gets twisted and his thoughts will become prioritizing negative and evil thoughts. This will make him become distrustful, vengeful, aggressive, and hungry for anything pure. It's like evil energy is using his body as a host to further taint anything that is good and pure. If he doesn't expel such evil energy and get purified from it, it will start to twist his appearance until he becomes demonized. Felix said, the moment this process ends, he will lose all relation he has to his past self and becomes a newborn demon whose main desire is to devour anything that is sinless. The leaders were left as silent as mice at the end of his narration, their solemn expressions were enough to showcase that their attitude was shaken by the horror of such diabolical energy. It was even scarier than void energy in their eyes, since void energy was contained in the void realm and never left it on its own. Meanwhile, evil energy was able to corrupt anything it touched. This planet's current screwed-up appearance was enough proof. I am not done yet. Felix smiled wryly as he shared, the scariest thing about evil energy is the fact that it is able to corrupt elemental energies and make them unusable. In other words, you need to rely on internal abilities most of the time and use quick attacks to avoid long skin exposure to evil energy. You knew all of this and only now you tell us. Queen Alfreda spoke with a displeased tone. In her eyes, this was too much vital information to be kept hidden from them, especially, when the Grand Supreme was the one having it. The others also weren't too happy about this, as Felix wasn't an individual person anymore but a representative and a leader of the entire alliance. I honestly didn't think that the first planet we will explore will be infested by it. I was going to tell you all about it after the trial run ends. Felix gave his excuse. It might seem weak, but Felix really didn't think for a moment that the closest planet to the Great Void would be infested by evil energy. That's because his master had told him that the demons were situated mainly on the opposite side from the Great Void and their territories weren't that big. He didn't expect that the demons' corruption would have already reached this far, as the implication behind it was just too bad for the alliance in general. Before the leaders could bother him about hiding this intel from them, Felix continued on, since planets can't give birth to such evil energy, it only means it has been added here externally by the previous habitats and abandoned after there was nothing more to corrupt. Felix advised the squad, that's why it's best that you guys finish your exploration as fast as possible. The evil energy will be targeting you and anything brought from the outside. He is right. My spacesuit seems like it's turning redder in shade. The spirit fox exclaimed. **T. When the others examined their spacesuits, their expressions couldn't help but turn ugly at the sight of their spacesuits getting corrupted by the evil energy. The fact that the entire planet seemed lifeless and brittle made them understand that their spacesuit would be extremely weakened until the materials would die on their own and they would be left exposed in the open to the source directly. Isn't it best to retreat and explore the planet from outside? Emperor Local said. This chapter was first shared on the N0v3LB1N platform. No, they are already down there. Felix ordered the werewolf. Clayton, try to follow the disgusting smell and you will find its source. On it. Without second-guessing Felix's order, Clayton spearheaded the exploration squad as he sprinted on all four. This forced the others to match his speed to not get left behind. As they were sprinting at moderate speed so Clayton wouldn't lose the scent, the scenery on their path was littered with soaring, craggy mountains and vast, gaping chasms that appeared to plunge directly into the planet's core. Keen. Just as they passed by one of those chasms, a school of featherless and skinless hollow birds emerged from it and covered the entire sky, casting a massive shadow on the squad. They were forced to a halt as they lifted their heads and saw that those birds were rushing towards them with blood-red eyes. Leave it to me. The humanoid black dragon said coldly as he stepped in front of the pack. He exposed one finger to the outside and pointed at the approaching school of birds. Whoosh! Then, he fired a pitch-black thin beam at them. The instant it touched the first bird, the beam suddenly expanded in size until it covered hundreds of meters and engulfed the entire school behind it. Kikai! The skinless flesh-hideous birds weren't able to even utter a cry of pain before they got turned into a rain of ashes. Smoke emerged from the black humanoid dragon's finger as he protected it with the nano-spacesuit again. Good job, Regal, at least they aren't immune to attacks. The spirit fox sighed in relief as she watched the rain of ashes. Alas, she realized that she had spoken too soon as the ashes began to gather up into one point, seemingly trying to merge with the other. What the? Under the dumbfounded eyes of the viewers, the point became bigger and redder until one humongous crimson fleshly bird was born. It was the exact copy of the small ones, but it looked more terrifying and disgusting, making many viewers in the chat stream actually vomit into their screens. Kee. The gigantic bird roared with its head lifted into the sky and dreadful blood eyes affixed on the squad. King Maxwell. All the leaders turned to Felix with livid expressions simultaneously. Feeling like he was playing with them by hiding such deadly information from them. Believe it or not, I actually had no clue about this either. Felix uttered with an innocent look. All he knew was the general knowledge about demons and the evil energy, but about the specific species and such. He was just as ignorant about them. 1283 The mysterious demonic statue. This must be an animalistic demon. Lady Sphinx cleared Felix's doubts. When intelligent beings get demonized, they turn into lesser demons. Meanwhile, animals, beasts, monsters, and such become animalistic demons. It's been a long while since I have visited the other side, so my information can be imprecise. She added. Felix was told that his master had visited the other side tens of millions of years ago for the sake of searching for the maniacal monoliths. When she left the other side, the demon species were still developing in a small area. After such a long period of time, God knows how much they had grown and evolved. Kiiki. Before Felix could respond, the gigantic skinless bird rushed again toward the squad with a single thought in its brain: corrupt their purities and bring them to the evil side. I will handle it. The squad's captain uttered calmly as he teleported between his squad and the approaching demon. Then, he waved his hand and opened a massive void rift in front of the skinless bird. The stupid monster disappeared through it without trying to evade it at all. The squad's captain closed the void rift immediately after starting to feel his strength getting sapped out of him from the paragon of sin's overbearing aura. Tisk, I could have finished it off. Regal clicked his tongue in displeasure. His pride was already wounded after the captainship was given to a void citizen instead of him. Now, even his fights were being stolen. Let's keep moving quickly. I doubt our spacesuits will hold on for less than an hour. The squad's captain ignored his tirade and nodded at Clayton to continue leading them. This chapter was first shared on the N0V3LB1N platform. Clayton jumped on all four and sprinted again in the direction of the revolting smell's source. As the squad kept moving through the charred mountains and barren crimson chasms, they went through multiple assaults from different unique and ugly animalistic demons. Whether those animalistic demons were ground crawlers, sky travelers, or surface-bound, all of them were able to resurrect into a much bigger and more powerful version of themselves after they get killed. This discovery made the Alliance's leaders reach the conclusion that the resurrection was related to evil energy instead of the species. Their theory was further proven when those animalistic demons ended up dying for real when thrown into the Void Realm and have their connection to the surrounding evil energy cut off. This is too spooky to be honest. Queen Allura spoke with a concerned tone. If those animalistic demons are unkillable as long as they have evil energy nearby, doesn't this mean that more powerful demons are immortals? The others thought the same. They knew that those idiotic demons were easy to handle only because they were running on one track record and they didn't care about their safety. But for intelligent demons? They would avoid having their connection cut off from the evil energy at all costs, which would make killing them almost impossible. The stench is getting too strong, we are getting CL. Hey! Before Clayton could finish his sentence, he was forced to come to an abrupt halt after his eyes landed on a massive peculiar statue over the horizon. He didn't need to tell them that it was the source of the evil energy as everyone narrowed their eyes at a visible thick red mist being released from the statue non-stop. What's that? The spirit fox asked with a spooked look at the monstrous appearance of the statue. Let's get close and find out. The squad's captain ordered with a stern tone. Now that they knew the source, he opened a portal connecting both sides and everyone went through it. When they exited from the other side, they were merely a few kilometers away from the gigantic demonic statue. The moment they stared this close at it, they couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up their souls. Its hideous and fearsome appearance played a big part in this as the statue was half a human half an animal. It had wings, horns, and sharp claws. Its skin was often red and scaly, with a texture that resembled that of a reptile. It had a distinctive facial feature as it possessed a large, hooked nose with multiple nostrils, and its eyes were piercing and sinister. As much as demonic it appeared, it clearly belonged to an intelligent high-profile entity as it was wearing robes, a crown, and holding onto a staff. These garments were decorated with intricate patterns or symbols that represented their demonic and also royal nature. The entire statue was red from top to bottom and seemed to be made from a solid material, but at the same time, it wasn't. Unfortunately for the squad, they weren't given much time to explore the statue in peace. *T. The evil energy potency is off the F*ing roof here. Clayton cursed after seeing his spacesuit getting absolutely bombarded by the red mist. The corruption speed got enhanced significantly as even Queen AI started warning them that their spacesuits were getting damaged beyond repair and they should take them off if they didn't want to lose them permanently. My king, we can't stay here for long. What's our next move? The squad's captain requested while beaming a massive metallic barrier to block the red mist. Try to destroy it and get me a piece for research. Then, retreat outside of the planet. Felix ordered with a solemn tone as he eyed the statue. He recognized immediately that this statue must belong to a high-ranked authoritative demon. The fact that it was able to release an infinite amount of evil energy made him understand that this must be one of the demon's key methods of corrupting planets and such. Since they couldn't touch it while it was actively releasing evil energy, they could only destroy it first. Without waiting for the order, Regal got in front of everyone and pointed his black-scaled finger at the gigantic demonic statue, then, he fired the same penetrative fire beam at the statue's torso. Boom! The moment it touched the statue, the beam expanded again and caused its target to get blown out into fragments without much resistance. Thud! 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 The statue's fragments kept raining everywhere, causing the squad to defend themselves against them. SSSSSSS. When the spirit fox saw one of the fragments land next to her, she couldn't help but suck a deep breath in utter horror. Dear God! Even the most stoic and fearless person watching the stream felt their hearts tightening up like they were being choked with bare hands. They ought to feel this way as the statue turned out to be made out of blended flesh, skin, and bones of many creatures. Some fragments were even showing terrified pained faces of many never seen before races. The sight was so disgusting and toe-curling, many viewers turned out the stream instantly with faces as pale as vampires. What kind of freaks are we dealing with here? Fisherman Queen Everly murmured. I have no idea, and I'm honestly starting to think that we aren't going to be having any friendly talks with them. King Tresnor replied with a stern voice. Whoosh! Whoosh! Before they could go deeper into their discussion, the remaining bottom of the statue started releasing a surge of colorful auras that went straight into the ceiling of the sky, bursting through the clouds and pushing them away. Felix and the others swiftly switched their focus to this abnormality as they kept staring at it with bewildered looks. What is that? The leaders turned to look at Felix for an answer, just to realize that he was as ignorant as them in this matter. Look! The evil energy around the statue is dissipating. Emperor Lockle called as he pointed his finger at the disappearing red mist after the colorful misty waves washed over it. When the squad saw those waves rushing in their direction, they swiftly protected themselves in their unique way. It smells nice and warm like a breeze in spring. Claymore shared after his nose was graced at last with something gentle in this revolting planet. Still, he didn't let down his guard and continued protecting himself with an icy barrier. After a couple of minutes more or less, the statue stopped releasing the colorful waves and the atmosphere finally regained its peacefulness. But, when the squad removed their barriers, they realized that the environment had regained more than just that. Is it me, or does the air seem less stuffy and the dirt looks more alive? Spirit Fox uttered with a tone of confusion as she looked around her. The environment does look more alive. Clayton replied as he sniffed, plus, I am not smelling the same disgusting scent anymore. I guess the evil energy was disposed of by those peculiar colorful waves. This was everyone's first assumption as it was the only thing that made sense. But, the real question spinning in Felix's and the leaders' minds right now was why the statue was filled with such positive energy in the first place. A giant statue of a high-ranked demon made out with perfect details of merged corpses of creatures. Able to release infinite amounts of potent evil energy. Now, even holds within it another peculiar type of energy that can negate evil energy. Felix knitted his eyebrows deeply. Why did the demons make such an important statue and leave it unprotected? Unbeknownst to Felix and the leaders, the moment they had destroyed the demonic statue, the owner and his people were alerted immediately. Prince Beelzebub. We have lost connection with the 10th Harvester on planet Gorena. 1284 Prince Beelzebub. Prince Beelzebub. We have lost connection with the 10th Harvester on planet Gorena. A lesser demon with a grotesque amalgamation of twisted features, bound to send shivers down the spine of even the bravest warriors, reported in a kneeling position. Even though he was kneeling, his size was close to 5 meters. His muscular frame was a sinister sight to behold, while its skin, a sickly shade of green, was mottled with dark purple veins that pulsated menacingly under the surface. Yet, his frightening appearance was nothing before Prince Beelzebub, who had the exact same features as the demonic statue, from body to clothes. It has been destroyed. Prince Beelzebub replied with a stoic expression while looking in a different direction. When his subordinate saw his behavior, he knew what he was doing and closed his mouth shut to not bother him. Interesting, very interesting. Prince Beelzebub uttered in his mind as he watched the memories of the demonic statue before it had been destroyed. As the owner, he was able to link his consciousness with it and see through its eyes. But, since it was destroyed, he could only visit the stored memories. Where did so many new races come from? How can they create stuff out of nothingness? They actually dare destroy a higher prince's harvester? Looking back, they do seem ignorant about it, like it's the first time they have seen one. Truly interesting. Many questions swam through Prince Beelzebub's mind as the entire memory was filled with things he had never seen before. As one of the 7 high princes with an entire demon realm under his rulership, he had seen too much and knew too much. But all of his knowledge and experience had failed him with everything he had seen, from the strange-looking races, their clothes, their equipment, their language, and even their powers. Gorena is nearby the infinite darkness, don't tell me they come from there. Before this thought could register in his mind, Prince Beelzebub laughed at his own foolishness. I am really in need of a drink. He couldn't entertain the thought for even a second, as he knew that the infinite darkness wasn't named as such for no reason. All of the 7 princes sent their exploration squads through the infinite darkness to find out if there were any new territories for them to conquer. Alas, not a single squad managed to find its way back and was lost forever in the darkness. More attempts were taken after that, but the result remained the same until everyone was forced to accept the disappointing truth. The infinite darkness was the end of their universe. If they didn't come from the infinite darkness, a new wormhole must have been opened up that is leading to an undiscovered galaxy. The fact that they don't know about the harvesters and my appearance even inside my demon realm means that their galaxy has no interaction with demons whatsoever. Prince Beelzebub smiled wickedly. Losing a harvester is painful and will set me back behind my bastard brothers and sisters, but if I managed to conquer this new galaxy, I will have so many purities to eat, I will leave them to eat my dust and take back my lost territories. He, my luck is finally turning around. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0v3l.bin. This is too weird. His subordinate Malgrath couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in surprise at his master's attitude towards the entire matter. When he brought the news, he thought he would be giving him crap to vent his anger since those harvesters were everything to the 7 princes, but, here he was smiling from ear to ear as he had just hit the jackpot. Malgrath, lead a scouting team toward Gorena and bring me intel about those daring assailants. Prince Beelzebub ordered. Don't engage with them though, even if they destroyed all of the remaining harvesters in Gorena. As you command. Just as Malgrath was about to take off, Prince Beelzebub warned him with a stone-cold tone, most importantly, do this under the radar. I don't want anyone to learn about this, especially my brothers and sisters. Understood? Yes. Malgrath assured him with a shaky tone. He knew his master was still vying for the Demon King's throne even when his odds were the worst out of the 7 princes. If he was the reason he screwed his odds even more, he understood that he would be tortured for the rest of his immortal demonic life. Oblivious to their exposure to the realm ruler, Felix had already ordered his squad to exit the planet and return to their side even when the evil energies levels had been lowered drastically in that area. Oblivious to their exposure to the realm ruler, Felix had already ordered his squad to exit the planet and return to their side even when the evil energies levels had been lowered drastically in that area. After they returned, Felix ended the live stream and told the public that the Alliance would be updating them with more information after they prepare for the main exploration mission. We might have spent only a few hours there, but it's enough to let us know that we are dealing with a powerful and fearsome enemy. Queen Alfreda said with a solemn tone, we have to change our approach if we want to avoid unnecessary problems and casualties. Agreed. Felix and the rest of the inner circle leaders approved off the bat. Before, they wanted to send exploration squads across the entire undiscovered territories and start recruiting new members into the Alliance. It was the same system that was being used on a daily basis on the Skallians' territory, as not all of it had been explored yet. But now? All of them could see that wasn't going to work well against those demonic creatures. Just the existence of evil energy was enough to make their conquest more complex since it corrupted anything it touched. The sickening notion that made them change their attitude was the existence of the demonic statue. I really can't see ourselves allying with a race that uses millions of corpses to create a statue out of them. We are all inclusive, but those things are absolute evil and they will bring no value to our alliance but chaos. Shadowborn's ruler Hogan stated with a stern look. It's best to not jump to conclusions too early. Empress Scarlet smiled gently, we still don't know much about them. Since we allowed the Void Nation in, you should know that everyone deserves a chance. She's right, we have to get more information about them to make the best decision. Although this could be considered an indirect attack on his nation's past, Felix didn't attempt to defend it. Unlike them, he knew much more of the evil deeds of many of the Void citizens and even his councilmen. Civilizations were ended and lives were changed and manipulated for the worse. While the Void citizens were peaceful now and seemed cool, it was only because he and Nimmo were keeping them in check. So, as much as those demons didn't really give the best first impression, he wasn't a hypocrite to deem them as an absolute evil that should be ended right off the bat. I suggest we send out our military fleets to completely conquer this solar system and turn it into a fortified fortress before we start our exploration. Minister Aquarius proposed. Seconded. Seconded. Everyone agreed to the proposal even when it meant their exploration mission would be delayed by many months for preparation. Still, it was better to be safe than sorry. After a couple of hours of discussion to iron out the details, Felix excused himself. He entered the Void Realm and met with the squad's captain who handed him a portion of the demonic statue. Felix swiftly took it and returned to Candace's aircraft. "Doesn't it feel disgusting?" Asna asked with a grossed-out expression as she watched Felix studying the molded piece of flesh. "It's supposed to feel disgusting and have a fleshy sensation, but it somehow doesn't." Felix replied as he poked it, "It feels like a solid piece of stone that is painted to resemble a mold of flesh and blood. I don't know what they used to make it like this and I don't have the tools here to study it properly." Felix ended up throwing it back inside his spatial card after realizing that he couldn't really run any experiments inside Candace's aircraft. "Should I enter the other side before everyone else?" Felix suddenly decided to get out of here to regain a bit of his freedom. In his eyes, he was being so cautious because of his location exposed, but if he went through the wormhole and continued traveling at light speed on the other side, he could log into the UVR without worrying about anything. As for the demons and dangers of the other side, there wasn't really anything they could do to him in his overgeared spaceship. Might as well go F. Just as he began considering this thought for real, Lord Koaz interjected with an emotionless tone, "Fair warning, my reach doesn't cover the Void Realm on the other side. If you went there, you will be on your own against the Darkins." Hey! 1285 Change of plans. Felix was left startled at his warning. "Is it because of the Paragon of Sins?" Lady Sphinx asked for confirmation. She clearly had previous doubts about this matter and was planning to ask him about it in case Felix decided to travel to the other side. She didn't expect that he would come first and tell them about it. No comment. Lord Koaz refrained from telling them his reasons. This forced everyone to drop the matter at once. "Do you think the Darkins know about this?" Thor wondered with a deep frown. "Who knows?" Hormungandr mentioned, "All we know is that those bastards have gone off the radar for a while now. It's not far-fetched to assume that they have isolated themselves on the other side. With the news about the Alliance's conquest, one of Manananggal's clones can easily deliver the information and make them plan to hunt him down." Everything was nothing but mere speculations without proof, but it still affected Felix's decision drastically. He was being extremely cautious about his safety even when he knew that the Darkins wouldn't dare attempt to assassinate him while Lord Koaz was having his back. Now that he would be losing his main source of protection and he was still not strong enough to protect himself, he would be foolish to ignore the warnings. "It's still possible for me to beam my spaceship and speed through the wormhole, not giving anyone a chance to attack it. As long as I keep my location hidden on the other side, it's impossible for them to find me." Felix knitted his eyebrows, "But they are intelligent enough to predict this and prepare a counter in case they were really trying to assassinate me on the other side. It just sounds too risky with no rewards to match it." Asna advised, "I think it's best that you don't enter the other side and return to the elemental galaxy to push through the origin realm and reach a deity level." This was indeed the smartest decision. "What about the Alliance's conquest?" Felix shook his head, "I am the spearhead, and if I disappeared at such a crucial point in the Alliance's future, I will forever be seen as unreliable and lose everyone's respect. It was one thing to leave his Void Nation and humans to seclude himself in the Elementals galaxy and another to do the same with the entire Alliance behind him. Since Felix planned on spending much more time in the Elementals galaxy as it would be his last chance to take advantage of its time difference, he could be gone for centuries if not more in the real world. What kind of a Grand Supreme ditched his responsibilities for centuries the moment he took office? High Chieftain Lakaka wouldn't hesitate to challenge him while he was gone and take his position after he forfeit through default. You can always get your title back, but not your life. Asna stressed. There must be another way. Felix wasn't foolish to risk his life to prove his worthiness to the Alliance, but at the same time, he would rather consider all options before cowardly bailing out the instant he smelt a bit of danger. The fact that the other side was clearly packed to the brim with dangerous individuals made him understand that his existence would be needed more than ever. How about having a clone? Candace suggested with a finger on her lips. You mean like a clone? Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. Yes, why not? Candace clarified, you can easily create a real clone using your previous normal DNA before all of its modifications. Then, use your wisp of consciousness to control it. This way, you will be there to participate in the Alliance's decisions while at the same time training in the Elementals galaxy. Well, I always felt that it was a bit weird to have a real clone of mine even if it was controlled by my own wisp of consciousness. But, this is far better than the alternatives. Felix found the idea plausible. Won't the inner leaders be somewhat displeased that you are attending using a mere clone? Asna wondered. *CKM, this is my life at risk here. Felix sneered, they should be delighted I am going the extra distance to be there even when I had 3 primogenitors breathing down my neck. That's true. Asna chuckled, liking his answer. Master, is it possible to create a few clones in your lab? Felix voiced his request to Lady Sphinx. He knew that it would be impossible for him to create a clone using his current highly complex and chaotic DNA, even if he pulled it off by some miracle, the clone would be at risk of collapsing at any moment or having random mutations popping off once in a while. To top it off, even if he put his wisp of consciousness in it, he would still not be able to use elemental manipulations or any sort of abilities. That's why Candace told him to use an old version of his DNA to make the clone as it would be easier and the clone's longevity would be much longer. Lady Sphinx was the only one having his old DNA stored due to using it in her experiments over the past years. Those clones will come out looking different than you right now. Lady Sphinx offered, I can use my sand manipulation to create perfect clones of your current appearance, but you will have to be extremely careful as they will break apart if things got too rough. I understand. Felix nodded in appreciation. He knew that her perfect clones were able to fool almost everyone unless they got a close hold of him. Candace, get hold of Maki and send her to get the clones from Master. Felix ordered. On it. Felix had no intentions of going all the way back to the Witch Empire when the problems here had yet to be solved. Days went by and then months. Before long, the area near the wormhole was packed to the brim with hundreds of thousands of magnificent and dreadful warships. Since this mission was related to the Alliance as a whole, their military fleets were used instead of personal ones of each race. They were being led by the collective decision of the 10 rulers even when the fleets were packed with all sorts of races from around the universe. Are we set for departure? Felix asked. The moment Felix saw the 10 rulers and the inner circle leaders nod at him in confirmation with solemn looks, he voiced the order, march. As the space fleets approached the mouth of the massive wormhole, each crew member felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This chapter was originally shared via N0, Vel, B, J, N. They had spent months preparing for this moment, but the unknown dangers that lay ahead made their stomachs churn. As the spaceships began to disappear through the wormhole, Mananangel kept his eyes affixed on Felix, who was still leeching off Queen Allura's spaceship. He was certain that the moment all of the spaceships reached the other side, he would follow them from behind with his own personal fleet. He was this confident because he heard him say it when he was using a fake clone disguised as a crewman inside Queen Allura's spaceship. It's about damn time. Saurus and Wendigo were just as eager as him. Everyone has made it to the other side successfully, it's my turn. Take care, senior sister. Felix nodded at Queen Allura before taking his leave through a void rift. When Manananggal saw this from his clone's eyes, he swiftly concentrated on the area near the wormhole, knowing that Felix was smart enough to ride his spaceship inside the void realm before pushing it through the void rift. As he expected, a gigantic void rift opened up slowly in front of the wormhole before a sleek pitch-black spaceship emerged from it. Isn't this his previous spaceship? Saurus remarked. I guess he is using it since the other one is too large for the void rift. Wendigo warned his partner. Manananggal, don't mess it up. Mess it up. Manananggal smiled coldly as he pulled back a finger that was pointing at the speeding spaceship. I have already succeeded in planting the blood drop. There was less than a second window where the spaceship exited the void rift and entered the wormhole rapidly. Yet, that was more than enough for him to fire his blood drop into a bullet and plant it. It's done. Haha, at last, we will be getting this F***er. Saurus laughed loudly with pure joy emitting from his mouth. He didn't spend a moment thinking that Felix would be able to live through this. In his eyes, there was just absolutely no way of it happening unless Lord Kaus himself found out about the blood drop before it grew into Manananggal. At last. 1286 all of that effort for this. The moment Felix's spaceship reached the other side, his fleet followed him from behind. It consisted of bodyguards from the Void Nation since he was using his clone and it needed protection on the surface. Move out! Felix ordered from the cockpit of his spaceship, Dark Deviant. Most of the Alliance's fleets sped toward the red planet Gorena while the rest spread out into formations and went in different directions. This solar system had more than 15 planets orbiting the star. The Alliance had put a plan to conquer all of the planets in it within a mere 2 weeks' time frame. If the soldiers landed on the planets and found out that it was corrupted with evil energy, they were tasked to destroy them. It was the only method found to restore the planet's liveliness and at the same get rid of evil energy. They had tested it out in the past months by locating all of the 10 demonic statues on Gorena and getting rid of them. After Felix's spaceship arrived at Gorena's stratosphere, he refrained from going any further. Although the demonic statues had been taken care of, the planet was still brimming with high levels of evil energy and it was going to take a long time for it to be completely cleared out. If you find a civilization or even a small tribe on one of those planets, do not kill them even if they were demons. Felix reminded with a solemn tone, we need as much information as possible and only the natives have it. Roger. Understood. While he was busy giving out orders and checking the stream screens of each fleet mothership, he had no clue that a blood drop was slowly creeping up in his direction from the far back of the spaceship. As the blood drop was levitating at a moderate speed, it appeared to be slowly growing in size. The moment it reached the cockpit door, the blood drop turned into an exact copy of Felix. This was the only reason Manananggal was able to reach this far without alerting the spaceship's AI. SHSSS. The cockpit's door opened up automatically for Manananggal. Although Felix's clone was considered a mere mortal, he still heard the door opening noise and turned his head. Hey! The moment he saw himself standing at the gate fully nude, he was left absolutely flabbergasted. For a moment, he thought that one of his dormant extra clones had awakened its consciousness on its own. But that thought was removed from his mind the instant he saw Manananggal's expression turning paler like he had just seen a ghost. No, 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 no. Manananggal kept repeating with a disbelieving look as he teleported right in front of his face. Don't tell me. Felix felt a sudden shiver course his spine as he looked at his clone's eye and realized that they hold within them an uncapped level of sinister hatred. He knew instantly that no one in this universe had this much hatred for him besides the Darkans. Manananggal. Felix exclaimed as he attempted to pull away from him reflexively. Alas, he wasn't able to even move an inch as Manananggal's pressure made it impossible. How? How did you find out? The calm and collected Manananggal was nowhere to be seen as he shouted at Felix with the most murderous stare he could muster. Felix's clone might fool everyone else, but not the god of blood. He recognized that Felix's body was made out of sand instantly. This can't be real. A clone, a mere clone. Saurus and Wendigo didn't take it any better than Manananggal. They were left staring at Felix with looks of denial and disbelief. Even as primogenitors, the news was just too much for them to take as they had planned and invested way too much into this. They lost a precious favor from Lord Loki and owed him a new one. The original appearance of this chapter can be found at N0v3L.B1N. They even decided to spend the rest of their lives on the other side of the universe to avoid Lord Koa's anger. All of this for a clone? It was understandable for Manananggal to finally lose his composure and let his suppressed anger and hatred burst out of his chest. Uf'ers were really planning to kill me. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly at Manananggal. Even though Felix went through so much for his safety, a big part of him was certain that the Darkins would not make a move on him personally. After all, it was really hard to envision a primogenitor making a personal move on a mortal. Only now did he realize that the Darkins had stopped seeing him as a mortal a long time ago and as one of their most irritating enemies that needed to be eliminated even if it meant putting out some sacrifices. Little sh*t. Why won't you just drop dead already? Manananggal said with a suppressed tone as he held Felix's neck. Alas, his anger made it difficult to control his strength as the moment he tried to choke Felix, his body crumbled into a pile of sand with the AP bracelet sitting at the top. Manananggal and his partners were left staring at the pile of sand with bloodshot eyes. Only one thought was coursing through their minds as they kept staring at it without a single blink. All of that effort for this. Ha 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 ha. Haha, I can always rely on those clowns to make my mood better. I kind of feel bad for them. Meanwhile, Thor, Hormungandr, and the rest of the tenants were either bursting into laughter or shaking their heads with sympathetic looks. Only Felix was sighing in relief while wiping a sweat drop from his forehead. He didn't see anything amusing about this situation as he knew that if he acted just a bit careless or dumb, his life would have been over. How did he get in my spaceship so soon and even did so while using an exact clone of mine? Felix frowned. Even though he escaped from such a death trap, he felt obliged to know how did Manananggal get so close to him without him finding out about it. He must have been camping outside of the wormhole and made a move the moment he spotted your spaceship. Asna guessed. Felix's first guess was also this as it made the most sense. Since he was using his clone, he decided to not be so cautious anymore and accompany his people. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be given even a minute before Manananggal turned up in his spaceship. For him to make a perfect blood clone of you that is capable of fooling a spaceship's scanning systems, he must have gotten a drop of your blood. Thor mentioned with a confident tone. As his mortal enemy, he knew him almost just as well as Manananggal knew himself. How did he get his hands on such a thing? Felix knitted his eyebrows. It's impossible for him to get the data from our fight in the Primogenitors event as everyone's DNA is encrypted by Queen AI. I doubt anyone possessed my blood beside Lady Sphinx. If Felix didn't trust Lady Sphinx with his whole heart, she would be the obvious suspect, but since she was out of the picture, he really couldn't figure out how his enemies got hold of such an important piece of data from him. I know how they did it. Lady Sphinx spoke with an irritated tone as Lord Loki's playful expression surfaced in her mind. Who? Don't worry about it, I will handle it. Lady Sphinx didn't want to break Felix's entire universe by telling him the secrets about the UVR as she knew that he would never see the UVR in the same way ever again. This would drastically affect his future in a negative manner and he wouldn't be able to fix the issue even if he wanted. Mother f***ers. Suddenly, Felix cursed with a pissed-off tone after he received a notification that his spaceship had been destroyed. He swiftly changed his focus to his main consciousness, which was situated in the cockpit of the Eternal Nautilus. When he requested Queen Ai to show him what happened to his dark deviant, he couldn't help but feel even more pissed off. Manananggal had utterly released all of his anger and resentment on his spaceship as he had turned it into a blob of blood before he blew it under everyone's eyes. Felix was mad not because he had lost most of his extra clones and spaceship, but mostly because everyone had seen this happening. Ting ting. As he expected. His AP bracelet began vibrating like there was no tomorrow with the number of messages he was receiving. Felix wrote an email, planning to calm everyone with something made up. But, just as he was about to send it, he realized that he could take advantage of this and also make the Darkins look like absolute dog poop in front of the entire Alliance's upper echelon. Since you already decided to give up on your dignity completely, then don't mind me shattering it. Felix sneered as he requested an emergency meeting with all of the inner circle leaders. Felix was no rat, but in this case, he was definitely going to snitch on them. 1287 each with his own scheme. A few moments later, the meeting was held in the UVR and all of the Alliance's leaders had attended it. All of them had solemn expressions as they had just witnessed their Grand Supreme spaceship turn in flames. Before they could shed light on the matter, Felix appeared on his chair with a flash of light. King Maxwell. What happened? Were you attacked by the demons? A fiery of questions rained down on Felix before he could even adjust his seating. Relax, I am fine and it wasn't the demons. Felix shared. Then, who is daring enough to attack you? Queen Alfreda frowned. This question rang in everyone's minds as they knew that only retards would dare assault the Grand Supreme in the open like that. Forget about the entire alliance backing him up, his overbearing strength alone was enough to scare off anyone. Who else? Felix sighed in frustration. Don't tell me. Most of the leaders were sharp enough to realize that only the Darkins would dare assassinate the Grand Supreme. They were at odds with each other and a blood ability was used to take down the spaceship. Knowing that they wouldn't be certain without evidence, Felix showed them the latest recording of his clone. It was more than enough to give away at least Manananggal. But how did you manage to escape if it was really Manananggal? High Chieftain Lakaka asked with his eyes narrowed. I am not saying that you are weak, but there is simply no way you can survive an attack from a primogenitor at such a close distance. Everyone shared the same thought as primogenitors were just in a different realm than them, and even with everything that Flea had shown, they were convinced that he couldn't have survived that. I have always predicted that I will be ambushed by them from the start. That's why you have been using spatial imprisonment? King Tresnor interjected with a surprised tone. Yes. Felix continued on without a change of expression, since I can't enter the wormhole while using it, I have switched to using a clone to bait the assassination. As you have seen, it has worked out perfectly. If the Darkins heard your bullsh*t, they will totally lose it. Asna couldn't help but chuckle in amusement at his shameless lies. He was literally trying to show himself to have outsmarted 3 primogenitors while in truth, he was just being too cautious about his safety, and it paid off. The original appearance of this chapter can be found at N0v3L.B1N. As expected of the Grand Supreme. Even an assassination attempt from a primogenitor can't faze you. King Tresnor laughed out loud in delight. I can't believe a primogenitor will stoop this low and target a mortal, deity my ass. Queen Allura cursed. They really have given up on their dignity once and for all. Queen Alfreda showed a distasteful look. I am reporting this to my ancestor. Even the inner circle leaders had displeasure and disappointment written all over their faces. In their eyes, the alliance was at a crucial point in its life and everyone needed to be focused to handle those fearsome demons. Yet, their Grand Supreme was almost killed in the first minute of stepping into the other side. When even the inner circle reacted like this, the rest of the primogenitors had utter looks of disgust after hearing the news. They didn't just disrespect themselves but even Lord Cows. Siren shook her head. How can they expect to live in peace now that they have truly angered him? In the primogenitor's eyes, Lord Cowes was one of the few primogenitors that shouldn't be enemies with for a simple reason: his void realm allowed him to be anywhere and everywhere. As they expected, the moment Manananggal made a move on Felix, Lord Cowes began his hunt. "My clones are dying one by one," Manananggal uttered with a suppressed tone as he watched his clones get kidnapped into the void realm and then erased from existence. Some put a bit of resistance, but it was absolutely useless against Lord Cowes. In less than a few minutes, more than 50 clones of Manananggal were deleted, whether they were dormant or had wisps of consciousness controlling them. It was an utter massacre across more than 60% of the entire universe, and it happened in a few minutes at best. "We still don't know for sure if he can come over here or not, but it's best to not give him a chance." Wendigo spoke with a serious tone. "I think we should travel towards the Paragon of Sin's slumber area. I doubt he will dare get so close to him." Lord Loki merely told them that he was 80% sure about his information. So, it was much better for them to act like Lord Cowes would come at them after he finished off most of Manananggal's clones. "What about that F***er? Saurus gritted his teeth. "Do we just let him go this easily? What else can we do?" Manananggal rubbed his temples to ease his headache. "He will most definitely send over his clones to oversee the conquest now that he is sure we are here. Our best attempt has ended up in a catastrophic failure, and we can only lay low for now and work on Lord Loki's favor." Saurus sighed. "The last thing we need is to get that irritating bastard on our back too." Obviously, they hadn't completely given up on ending Felix's life before he reached a deity level and become a whole new problem to them. But, they knew that nothing much could be done on their part, and they had to wait until Felix made a mistake and capitalize on it. Good thing the Paragon of Sin's resting place is in the center of the demon's 7 realms. We can secure our safety while finishing the mission. Without further ado, the Darkins took off into the depth of the other side, knowing that it was going to take them a long while before reaching their destination. After all, there wasn't any wormhole network of shortcuts to facilitate interstellar travel. Unbeknownst to them, their assassination failed attempt didn't just upset them alone. Those bunch of losers! How can they proclaim themselves to be primogenitors when they can't even kill a hopeless mortal? Nemo's alter ego cursed with a tone filled with pure resentment. He waited and waited patiently for months, and in the end, he was met with these depressing results. He really thought that this was his perfect chance of breaking free once and for all from Nemo's soft personality, but alas, fate had something else stored for him. "If I can absorb neither void energy nor the 7 sins laws, I should devour evil energy on the low to gain more control." Nemo's alter ego narrowed its diabolical red eyes. "This retard has no idea that we can absorb even evil energy, so I can totally pull it off." When Nemo rejected the awakening and caused his alter ego to be born, all of the abilities, memories, and power-ups from the awakening went to his alter ego alone. So, he truly had no clue that he could absorb evil energy clearly. Neither Felix nor his masters knew about it as well. "Just you wait. I will be free at last, and I will make you pay for every bit of humiliation you put me through." The moment he said so, Felix picked up Nemo and started rubbing his belly while he was giggling in enjoyment. "Bastards!" Nemo's alter ego's eyelids twitched as the sight was really too much for him to accept. Just like he was planning to free himself one way or another, Felix hadn't stopped for a moment to force him into giving up and merging with Nemo. In other words, this was a war of attrition to see if Nemo's alter ego would give up before he managed to gain control over his body. 1288 Amaterasu's descendants. 1 hour later, the assassination attempt situation had been put to rest by Felix and the Alliance leaders, making them refocus on their conquest mission. Felix was smart enough to use this situation to his advantage and make his peers accept that he would be using only his clones to lead them. No one raised any objections, as they were actually favoring him to do it. With that, Felix didn't have to worry anymore about having his peers ask him to participate in a difficult battle or such. "Any updates?" Felix inquired with a bored tone as he was seen chilling in his cockpit's spaceship with Mika massaging his shoulders gently. Since he was using a useless clone, he could neither train nor even explore on his own, forcing himself to remain in his spaceship and wait for intel. Obviously, he could enter UVR and practice runic spells or such to help the main consciousness, but since that required total concentration, it wasn't going to end well when he could be interrupted at any moment. All of our fleets have reached their targeted destination through personal wormholes. They are now scanning for any life sign. Whoosh! Before she could finish her statement, a sudden holographic screen appeared in front of Felix with a new face on it. It was that of a stern-looking black elf with a thick grey beard, making him appear more like a human than a night elf, especially when he was wearing a dignified commander's hat that hid his long unique ears. Grand Supreme! We have detected signs of civilization on Planet 7. Commander Nethrail reported with a solemn tone. Show me. Without further ado, Commander Nethrail forwarded a holographic screen that seemed to be spying on a ruined city from outer space. The city was a desolate wasteland, a haunting shell of its former glory. Tattered banners hung limply from broken flagpoles. From the street's wide size, Felix knew that they were once bustling, but now? They seemed eerily silent. Meanwhile, the buildings that had once stood tall and proud were crumbling ruins. Dust and debris coated everything, obscuring the vibrant colors of the past. Yet, what's more surprising was the dots of red auras sitting under these rubbles. They must be living underground. Felix murmured, are they the survivors from a demon invasion or actual demons themselves? Although the red auras seemed humanoid, Felix knew that most lesser demons weren't too beastified. This isn't everything. Commander Nethrail forwarded multiple screens. To Felix's surprise, some screens were showing bustling cities with millions of unique-looking individuals, walking or riding on peculiar horse-like animals. This chapter was first shared on the N0V3LB1N platform. The cities resembled the destroyed ones in both layout and design, but nothing was destroyed, making it shine its glory akin to a bright candle. Felix knew immediately that they weren't demons as they seemed too angelic. Even from outer space, the camera was able to zoom in to the point Felix was able to see their distinctive features. They were tall and slender with long lingers and delicate features. Their eyes were large and round, with irises that reflected the colors of a rainbow. They had small, pointed ears that can swivel in any direction. Yet, what was most unique about them was their tiny wings that seemed to be made out of light itself. Although they were extremely bright, they weren't blinding at all, like the light they were releasing was nothing but an illusion. Interesting, are they light elementalists? Lost descendants of the light primogenitor, Amaterasu? Felix wondered. They do look like his previous descendants. Thor answered. It's the Luminari race and they are his descendants. The light primogenitor's main galaxy was around here before he decided to off himself. Lady Sphinx confirmed it. I always wondered where the descendants of other primogenitors were. I guess they were here all along after Lord Shiva isolated them from the rest. Asna said. With the demons being this spread out, I doubt many of them remained. Felix frowned. Grand Supreme, we have located a demon civilization as well on the opposite side of the planet. Commander Nethrail informed as he sent another holographic screen. At first sight, it was crystal clear that this city belonged to no one but demons. It was a nightmarish labyrinth of twisted buildings and grotesque architecture. The streets were lined with towering spires and jagged cliffs, and the buildings themselves seemed to writhe and pulse with otherworldly energy. The sky overhead was a sickly shade of red, casting a sickly glow on everything below. Strange creatures roamed the streets, their twisted forms reflecting the twisted nature of the city itself. Demonic hounds slunk through the shadows, their eyes glowing with an eerie red light. Horned demons danced on the rooftops, leaping from building to building with unholy grace. If Felix was down there, he would notice that the air was thick with the stench of sulfur and decay, a noxious haze that seemed to seep into every pore. Do we make contact with the natives? Commander Nethrail inquired. If this planet had only either demons or natives, he wouldn't have called Felix. But to have them both on one planet was too complex and needed new orders. Send a scouting squad towards the ruined city and make contact with the underground dwellers. Felix ordered, try to get as much information as possible from them about the planet and hopefully the entire situation on the other side if they had a clue. As you command. Commander Nethrail nodded before hanging up. The moment he was gone, the Inner Circle leader's holographic screens appeared in front of Felix. Smart call, seeking information from those ruins dwellers will ensure that we meet either the natives or the demons. Since they are isolated, we will be getting the information we need without needing to get into too much trouble. Fisherman Queen Everly approved. Although the Alliance clearly had a massive advantage when it came to technological advancement, it was still better to start small and move up. After all, Felix didn't know if the bustling city of Amaterasu's descendants will have any undercover demons or not. In a few minutes at best, the scouting squad's spaceship had landed in the center of the ruined city. Since it was unknown if those red auras belonged to demons or not, the squad had a couple of powerful fighters capable of carrying their own weight. Queen AI, what's the level of evil energy around us? The squad's captain requested as he extended his AP bracelet. The AP bracelet started to cover many kilometers of range with a scanning blue hue for a couple of seconds before it disappeared. Calculating, mildly dangerous. Queen AI answered. The metal race didn't waste those months of waiting for the main army to arrive as they had taken with them many samples from the Red Planet and used them to come up with a method capable of calculating evil energy's intensity. It had 5 levels: clear, neutral, mildly dangerous, dangerous, and deadly. This system was incorporated into a new batch of AP bracelets and handed to everyone taking part in the exploration to help them detect it without needing to take off their spacesuits. We have to be quick in our exploration, the squad's captain said. Better yet, take the targets back to our mothership and we will question them here. Commander Nethrail ordered. On it. Without delay, the scouting squad searched for a way to the city's underground. With the AP bracelet advanced scanning system, it didn't take them much before they located a tight tunnel. It was buried under a building's rubble in a way that allowed those inside to exit it but made it almost impossible to spot it from the outside. Hold it here. The squad's captain ordered as he turned himself into a shadow and went through the dark tunnel. As a Shadowborn, he was born for such missions. In a few moments at best, he reached the end of the tunnel and was met with the sight of a depressingly small camping zone. There were a few rugged tents here and there. The only source of light was a fire camp in the center, where many luminaries seemed hurtled up for heat. Unlike the luminaries in the bustling city, they seemed malnourished and bony like they hadn't eaten a proper meal in months. They don't seem dangerous. But don't let down your guard, Taluk. Commander Nethrail warned. The squad's captain Taluk made a noise of acknowledgement and returned to the Shadow Realm. The next time he appeared, it was from the fire's shadow. Before the luminaries could react to his jump scare, he released a potent sleeping poison that caused all of them to drop to the ground. Then, he cast a massive shadow around them and dragged them into the tunnel without making any noise. Only the fire remained crackling inside the depressing cave as everyone was kidnapped and taken into the mothership. Wake them up! Commander Nethrail ordered as he stared at the row of luminaries cuffed on chairs from behind a glass window. While they might seem weak and hopeless, Commander Nethrail still took the proper precaution and dealt with them per protocol. Author notice. Today I will be visiting the hospital with my friend to check on his brother who had gotten into a motorcycle incident. Midgard. Can you press on the demon realms? Felix ordered the commander. Is it possible to know more about those realms? Commander Nethrail narrowed his eyes. How big are they, who leads them, and why are there 7? You guys really know nothing. This time the luminaries were truly taken back as they thought that they had come from at least a different demon realm and lost their way here, but now, they had absolutely no clue and it didn't seem like Commander Nethrail was going to tell them before they ask his questions. Well, we really don't know that much about all of the 7 demons' realms. Such information is in possession of the luminary's royal family and its government. All we know is the general knowledge about our demon realm. Jakrika shook his head. I guess information is treated as a resource here. Felix thought to himself. With the absence of UVR and a united alliance, it was understandable that the commoners would have a minimum understanding of their universe. Even the information in their possession can be false or misleading, so it's best to question everything we hear until we get confirmation from the royal family. All we know is that the 7th demon realm is being owned by a royal demon called Prince Beelzebub and that his territory is the smallest out of all 7 realms. Jakrika shared. Who is this Prince Beelzebub? How strong is he? We never interacted with him or his people since our planet has been invaded by a rogue demon race called the Netherlings. Although we are in his demon realm, those demons do not answer to him. So, we really don't know anything about him but his infamous name. The luminary elder Hognara answered this one with an honest tone. Is that so? Commander Nethariel asked his leaders telepathically, what do you think? There isn't any sign of dishonesty displaced. Queen Allura said, we should take their word for it. Move on. Felix approved of it as well. Tell us more about those Netherlings and how can they be living in a royal demon's territory and not be subjected to his rulership? Is there no strict hierarchy? They are demons, they have no loyalty to anyone but themselves. So how do they trust each other? With something called a demon contract or a soul contract. This contract can be taken between only a higher demon in rank than the other. It can never work between 2 demons of the same rank. This demon contract is extremely strict and most lesser demons get forced to sign it and swear allegiance to a higher demon only after they realize that their odds of surviving by themselves are too slim. For example, Prince Beelzebub and the other 6 princes have the highest number of demon contracts attached to them, probably in billions if not more. Those contracted lesser demons can be considered literal slaves to them. They could do whatever they want to them without any repercussion, even kill them. Why are they so stupid to sign such an eternal death sentence? Commander Nethariel frowned. It just didn't make sense to him that selfish and disloyal demons would hand over their freedom like this to another being. When compared to the alternative, it's much better. Jakrika shook his head. Lesser demons are just normal people like us being demonized after long exposures to potent evil energy. When they get demonized and have their minds and even their bodies changed, they still keep one thing in their control, rationality. This chapter was first shared on the N0v3LB1N platform. Unfortunately, the only method to not lose their rationality and intelligence is to keep feeding on the purities of the universe. Otherwise, they will turn into animalistic demons following the same desire as the evil energy, utter corruption of anything pure. In other words, rational demons are actually still fighting off evil energy even when they already became demons. Felix was really startled by this intel. It was like even demons didn't have immunity to their own evil energy and were still under its constant corruption. If they allowed it to do as it pleased, they would get too corrupted to even have a single thought in their mind. They would be left with an empty shell, seeing nothing but pure corruption. I can't believe there can be such a potent and fearsome energy in the universe. Queen Allura uttered, if even demons are fighting it, we will really suffer a great deal in our conquest against it. The inner circle leaders could already imagine having their own people demonized and turned against them. They wouldn't be able to stop attacking them even if they wanted, since stopping meant losing their rationality. It's like a deadly plague that has absolutely no cure. Emperor Local said with a solemn tone, are you guys still sure about conquering this portion of the universe? If only one demon or even a bit of evil energy managed to sneak past the wormhole and we didn't contain the spread, we lose all of our territories to the corruption as well. Just like most zombie apocalypses, they start with 1 or 2 and end up conquering the world and leaving entire civilizations in ruins. The inner leaders knew that if they underestimated the dangers of evil energy, their fate wouldn't be any different than Luminaris and other races. So, I guess the contracts are made so the less fortunate demons get taken care of higher ones by offering them free food. Commander Nethariel said. Exactly. Jakrika nodded. Ask him about what he means by purities. Felix ordered. P Alpha and D Alpha no one. Commander Nethariel relayed the question as it was. Purities are a bit of a vague concept for even us. Some even call it pure energy, and it exists to keep evil energy in check and balance the odds. Because evil energy is much more spread out and potent, this kind of pure energy gets devoured by it easily and corrupts whatever living thing it was attached to. We were told by the luminous loyal family that all life forms, whether intelligent or not, have a different level of purity. It can be a tree, a flower, an animal, an intelligent person, or even elemental energies in some cases. When they lose their purities, they don't really die out but just turn into a corrupted version. In this case, we call it getting demonized. So what was within those demonic statues was pure energy, and when it was released at once, it was so potent, it devoured evil energy in the surroundings. No wonder those areas seemed more alive after each demonic statue we destroyed. Felix reasoned after connecting the dots. Felix might not still understand what purities really meant, but it was obvious whatever opposite of evil and corruption. This meant good men who do great deeds and always help the less fortunate must carry with them a much higher level of pure energy than other people. Another example was children who were born pure and without many evil thoughts. This made Felix realize that children must be considered a delicacy for those demons. The fact that the saved luminaries from the underground had not a single child amidst them made him even more certain. See if it's possible for him to speak about what happened to their city and children. Felix ordered with a deep frown, knowing that he wasn't going to like the answer. As expected. The moment Commander Nethariel brought out this matter, the luminous expressions turned as pale as a piece of white cloth. Fear, anger, anguish, hatred, and various other negative emotions were seen displayed in each color of their rainbow-like eyes. This question did more than struck a nerve. Can we talk about this another time? Jakrika closed his eyes shut while tightening his fists on his lap. I am not ready. Grand Supreme, orders. Accept their wish. They aren't going anywhere. Felix ordered with a deep sigh. Give them a short break and ask them more about their race in general and the Netherlings. Felix still had no clue how exactly demons eat purities from their targets, but he could already foresee that it wasn't going to be gentle. One of the crewmates pressed a button on the metallic wall and stepped back. He watched the sealed-shut glass room get filled with yellow smoke for a few seconds before it got sucked inside the vents. Arg. One by one, the luminaries began opening their muddled rainbow-like eyes. When they started looking around them and seeing their unfamiliar location, fear and agitation started engulfing their hearts and minds. Cling! Cling! The first thought that came to their minds was jumping away, but the solid silver shackles kept them affixed to the chairs. Ubahara! Ubahara! One by one, they started yelling gibberish at each other with clear signs of worry and fear. Since the glass window was one side see-through, they didn't spot the commander and his crew but only their reflection. As expected, the language barrier is going to be tough to break without any clues. Queen Alfreda said. The other leaders agreed with her. With Queen Ai's processing power, she can perfectly learn any language in less than a second as long as she had the grammar, vocabulary, and linguistics. But, the leaders knew that it would be difficult to get them when they had no way of communicating with these luminaries or the internet to hack. Masters, do you know their language? Felix inquired. He knew that they had plenty of interactions with the light primogenitor before he offed himself, so it was more than possible for them to learn his people's language. After all, the common universal language was created after the foundation of the alliance. Yes. Hormungandr confirmed it. Is it possible to share it with Queen Ai? Sure. Hormungandr logged into the UVR and gave Queen Ai all she needed to master the Luminaris language. Commander, try to use Queen Ai for translation now. Felix disclosed. Okay. Commander Nethariel did as he was told even though he was a bit skeptical. He pressed a button and the window became see-through, scaring the Luminaris out of their wits when they saw them pop off in front of them. Ohana Maro Ni, Oni. Oni. While they were trembling in their chairs in fear, the luminary in the center was the only one shouting at the commander and his crew with a pitiful look of beseechment. "Queen, please translate," he said, "please let us go, demons." Queen Ai translated monotonously. "I guess they see us as demons even though our races are obviously different." Commander Nethrail requested, "Tell them that we are not demons and we have no plans of harming them. We have taken them under our custody to gain information and hopefully become allies." Queen Ai used the Luminaris language to relay the information through the speakers. P Alpha and D Alpha no one albeit startled by her voice, their expressions couldn't help but turn somewhat surprised by what she said. The Luminaris looked at each other with dazed looks and started discussing with each other. Commander Nethrail made Queen Ai translate anything they said, allowing them to hear their conversation. "Big brother, are they trying to trick us?" a bony fragile-looking girl asked while peeking at the glass window with a tint of suspicion. "The Netherling's demons are straightforward in their desires. I can't see them going through all of this trouble to just eat what remained of our purities." The man in the center replied with a serious tone. This chapter was first shared on the N0v3LB1N platform. Everyone seemed to have taken him as their leader as they kept looking up to him. "They don't even look like demons, are they really from other races or they are demons of another species?" A much older luminary with a grey beard mumbled, appearing like he would drop dead if he spoke any louder. Before the luminaries could continue their discussion, Commander Nethrail said, "We are not demons and my subordinate will prove it to you." Before the luminaries could react, a delicate snow-white elf in an army spacesuit went through the door and stood in front of them. The luminaries tensed up reflexively in fear, but the snow elf managed to put them at ease with a simple gentle smile. "It's okay," she said as she created multiple fragrant flowers and placed them on their laps. The flowers released a soothing scent that made them relax their shoulders and enjoy it with open arms. "Smells so good. This, flowers from thin air, what kind of sorcery is this?" Each luminary had his own reaction to the first time seeing a runic spell in action. But none of them had any more doubts that they were dealing with demons. They had spent their entire lives battling them and they knew that just their existence alone made it impossible to misidentify them due to their evil energy. The snow elf wasn't releasing an ounce of evil energy, which was impossible for even higher-level demons to do. The moment Commander Nethrail saw their change of attitude, he freed them from their shackles and said with a solemn tone, "We have came from a very far place and we know almost nothing about the demons and such, is it possible to share some knowledge? We will take great care of you in return." When the luminaries heard this, their expressions seemed to have brightened up akin to seeing their savior, some of them even had a bit of tears in their eyes. With their fragile bodies and dirty appearance, the sight really made everyone wonder what kind of hell they had been put through by the demons. An hour later, the luminaries could be seen sitting around one big table that was packed with emptied messy dishes like a tornado had gone through it. They were sitting with bulging stomachs and wide satisfied smiles like they had just eaten the most delicious meal in their lives. After gaining a bit of trust from each other, Commander Nethrail gave them new clothes, took them to the showers, and showed them their new rooms. To end his hospitality in a great manner, he gave them the best meal possible until none of them were able to add even a drop of water. Throughout all of this, he didn't bother to ask them anything about demons. It was best to seek out information after treating them so they would trust them to tell the truth. After giving them some time to digest the food, Commander Nethrail transferred them into the meeting room and sat with them. After spending a few minutes of introduction, Commander Nethrail went straight to the point. "First of all, can you please tell me the name of the planet, solar system, or even the stellar territory we are in?" "You really don't know?" Big Brother Jakrika raised an eyebrow in surprise. "As I said, we have come from a very far place." Far place. Although he found it hard to believe since he knew that demons had reached every corner of the universe, he still answered the question. We call the planet Lumerus, but after the Netherling demons invaded us, they started calling it Netherland. Our solar system is called Revria N1 while the entire stellar territory is referred to as Jakrika sighed in defeat, the seventh demon realm, Tartarus. Seventh demon realm, Tartarus. Felix knitted his eyebrows. Doesn't this mean there are 6 more demon realms? The inner circle leaders all shared solemn expressions as they kept looking at each other. They shared one realization, and that was the entire other side must have already fallen completely to the demons. 1291 The Return of the Samurai. After the commander exited the meeting room and closed the door behind him, the Luminaris still seemed sorrowful. Are you thinking about them? Luminari Elder Hognara asked with a bitter smile as he eyed Jakrika. Sigh. Jakrika merely gave him a somber look before he closed his eyes. Memories of the horror his city went through kept flashing in his mind, making it impossible for his heart to remain settled. He lost all of his family members to the demons' invasion, from his wife to his 2 children. As the man of the family, he was already ashamed that he was one of the few Luminaris that managed to avoid the demons' clutches. But he was still hanging on by a thin string of hope that his family might not be dead yet even when they were kidnapped by the demons. Do you think we should request help from these people? One of the Luminaris suggested with a soft tone. It's best to not get them involved in our mess, they already helped us a lot. Jakrika shook his head. He desperately wanted to ask for a favor and his pride wasn't the one holding him back, he just felt that it was beyond ungrateful to put this impossible mission on his savior's back. Even the Luminaris royal family wouldn't help them out since no one dared to get close to the Netherlings' territory due to the potency of evil energy being off the roof. In other words, the moment people get taken by demons to their territory, their fate was sealed to be either demonized or killed. Unbeknownst to them, the meeting room was equipped with security cameras and microphones, allowing Felix and the others to hear everything they said. What do you think? Queen Allura asked as she eyed Felix. If we want to have this planet under our grasp, we have to get rid of the Netherlings one way or another. Felix replied calmly, tell them what they want to hear and extract every piece of information from them. From all the information in his pocket at the moment, Felix had concluded that demons could never coexist with the Alliance. It wasn't because they were evil but just because their fight against evil energy corruption would make it impossible for them to just sit tight and play friends. It was in their instinct to devour whatever was pure to keep their rationality intact, which meant they were hardwired to be enemies with anything that wasn't corrupted. In other words, Felix had absolutely no intention of befriending or allying with a single demon and planned to eradicate them from existence at first glance. A couple of hours later, Felix could be seen docking his spaceship inside the 11th Gamma mothership. All of the planets in this solar system had been found to be either inhabitable or utterly void of life besides Netherland and Gorana. Since Gorana had already been conquered, there was no point in staying near it. After Felix entered the mothership, he was escorted to Commander Nethriel's commanding room, which was the cockpit. Grand Supreme. Commander Nethriel gave a formal army greeting with his crewmates to Felix the moment he stepped inside the cockpit. At ease. Felix sat on the first empty chair in his sight and said, "How far have you gone with the preparation?" "We are ready to start. We have located all dungeons where the demons hold the captives," Commander Nethriel said as he displayed multiple holographic screens before Felix. Each screen was showing a massive labyrinth-like underground dungeon mapped out using torches or whatever sources of light were inside of it. The best giveaway was the humanoid infrared auras of thousands of people hurdled up in small cramped cells. Those dungeons weren't really situated all under the demonic city but across the entire Netherlings region. "What's the plan?" Felix asked. "First, we will send 1-star fleets to each dungeon that's outside of the city. They will remain hidden in the sky above them while our main force will airstrike the city. When we finish with them, we can free the captives without worrying about reinforcements." Commander Nethriel shared his strategy. "How about the captives under the city? Won't they get affected massively by the airstrike?" Felix inquired. We are planning on sending down an elite task force that is able to free those captives and bring them back to safety in the least amount of time. Commander Nethrail ensured, we will start our airstrike only after they manage to rescue the captives. Good. Felix approved. In the past hours, Jakrika and his people laid out everything on the table for the Alliance after hearing that they are planning on taking down the demons with or without their information. This made them over the moon as they were finally presented with real hope of saving their families. Albeit skeptical about how they would do it, Jakrika still put his trust in them and told them everything he knew about the Netherlings. As Felix anticipated, children of ages lower than 10 were treated as premium goods by the demons while children under 5 were seen as products for only the Netherlings king. Since evil energy had no respect for the demons' rules and laws, the demons used the most hideous and traumatizing method to keep their captives safe from evil energy. Speaking about the devil, a crewmate swiftly forwarded a new holographic screen as he reported, "Commander, we have detected a new demonic caravan." Felix's eyelids turned cold the moment he spotted a long dusty caravan that consisted of humanoid long-horned demons and disgustingly looking monsters dragging behind them massive metallic wagons. The wagons resembled movable prison cells as it was possible to see through the bars. Unlike anyone's expectations, there was not a luminary seen inside those cells. Just a bunch of coffins stacked up one above the other. If one looked closely, he would realize that those coffins were made out of the same material as the demonic statue. Flesh, bones, and organs blended up together until they became solid material. What made Felix's blood boil was the sight of small coffins no bigger than half a meter. He knew exactly that alive kids and even toddlers were kept in those disgusting and absolutely horrendous coffins. Felix could accept many **TTY things, but when it came to innocent children no older than 10 years or even 5 years, he just could not stand still and watch them go through this hellish experience even if they were from another race. Their path is leading to the demon's city. I think it's best to deal with them before they reach it as they might end up in the crossfire. Felix suggested with a cold tone. My thoughts exactly. Commander Nethrail nodded. Without further ado, the commander gave out the order to the nearest fleet to the caravan. As the sun began to set over the barren wasteland, the caravan emerged from the rocky terrain. The demons leading it had their eyes glow with an eerie shade of red as they made their way toward the distant demon city on the horizon. The demons were unlike any others that had been seen before. They were tall and lean, with sharp, angular features and long, sinewy limbs. Their skin was a deep shade of obsidian, and it shimmered in the fading light as if it were covered in a layer of fine dust. Each of the demons was adorned with intricate jewelry made from precious metals and gems. The caravan was led by a powerful demon, his imposing figure looming over the others. He wore a crown made from polished bone, and his eyes burned with fierce intelligence. Behind him, the other demons marched in perfect formation, their movements synchronized and precise. He, we will be getting paid handsomely by King Action after he sees the number of premium goods in our possession. Bullet said with a devilish wide grin as he stared at his captain. His language was miles different that Luminaris or any other language as it resembled two metallic objects clacking with each other most of the time. I am getting hungry just thinking about it. One of the demons near him licked his lips while his body shivered in pure ecstasy. Don't let your guard down, the other F***ers will definitely attempt to steal our goods and we will be left with nothing to show off. Demon Captain Chort warned with a cold tone. While Captain Chort had his own rank and own lesser demons signing a soul contract with him, he was still considered one of the many followers of the King of the Netherlings, Action. This implied that all of his squad was under the authority of King Action even if those lesser demons hadn't signed a direct soul contract with him. Because of this diversion, there wasn't really any ironclad friendship or loyalty between demon captains under King Action. In other words, they wouldn't hesitate to take their stuff and leave them dead on the road, waiting to get revived by evil energy. King Action wouldn't punish either party as long as he get his food delivered to him. You are worrying too much, Captain, we found those products hiding underground tower by chance and no one knows about them but us, how can they Slice. Before Bullet could finish his sentence, the words were cut off his throat as his head was suddenly decapitated before anyone could react. Thud. The severed head flew a couple of meters in the air before landing on the road. The speeding caravan left it behind while the nearby demons were seen staring at the headless corpse of Bullet with stunned looks. Slice, slice, slice. Alas, before this scene could register in their minds, other demons' heads began flying in the air across the entire caravan without an ounce of resistance. Clink. The only one who managed to escape the assassination was Captain Chort as he instinctively placed his polarizing claws right in front of his neck, which resulted in sparks flying over instead of his head. Not bad. A humanoid feathery white owl suddenly appeared as silent as the wind above the ceiling of the captain's wagon. He was wearing a tight white spacesuit and a helmet that resembled a kabuto. He was carrying a long breathtaking but dangerously looking katana. His entire attire made him resemble the ancient Japanese samurai. The katana was placed near his waist, allowing the disgusting demon's blood to drop from the tip. "Who are you?" Demon Captain Chort yelled furiously as he raised his guard to the limit. "Me." This chapter was originally shared via N0, B, J, N. The humanoid owl seemed to have understood him perfectly. He lifted his katana and pointed it at Demon Captain Chort, then, he uttered with an icy tone, "I am your executioner." 1292 He is dead for real. Isn't that the Exonian you fought against in your mazes game? Asna remarked with a surprised tone. He sure is. Felix was just as taken back. He didn't think for a second that he would be meeting the executioner on this mission. But, at the same time, he didn't find it too hard to believe as he understood that only the elites of the Alliance were allowed to join this conquest mission. Felix had a strong feeling that many other familiar faces he fought must have decided to join this mission as well. After all, there was more than 30% of the universe unclaimed by the Alliance. This was a massive opportunity for strong and lucky ones to get a piece of this new pie. The risk was just as big as in the games, but the rewards were incomparable, which would definitely cause many players to change their path. For him to cut the heads of hundreds of demons in less than a few seconds, he really became much deadlier and quicker than before. Felix uttered with a faint smile. Meanwhile, the demon Captain Chort was left with a confused expression after hearing gibberish coming out of the executioner's mouth. However, before he could bother to think too much about the meaning, hundreds of sleek aircraft removed their invisibility system and appeared right in front and above the caravan. This caused all the remaining demons to stare at them with mouths wide open in utter disbelief and shock. When did the Luminaris get their hands on such fine clean metal birds? Losing focus while in front of me? Foolish mistake. By the time the last word entered the demon Captain Chort's ears, the executioner was already putting his katana in his sheath in a seemingly slow fashion. Click! The instant the katana fully disappeared into the sheath, Demon Captain Chort's body had hundreds of lines appearing on it. PSSSSSSSSSSSSSS. A split second later, he was cut into multiple pieces akin to a fruit while his blood literally exploded out of his body. He didn't even utter a single word before his sliced-apart corpse fell from the wagon and into the ground. Finish off the rest and rescue the captives before those demons get revived. The executioner ordered calmly while disappearing into the wind. Yes, Captain. In less than a few minutes, all the wagons on the caravan have been destroyed and left on the road with ruined corpses of lesser and animalistic demons. Meanwhile, all of the coffins had been taken away. Arg! Abruptly, Demon Captain Chorts groaned in pain after his body completed reconstruction from his head as the base. When he looked around him and saw the mayhem left behind, his mind just couldn't process it properly. What did just happen? Demon Captain Chort mumbled as he recalled the executioner's frightening prowess and the fleet of metal birds surrounding him. It was understandable that he was in a state of shock as he managed to realize that he was neither ambushed by Luminaris or demons. He was so certain as he had never seen a Luminaris capable of taking down a captain-rank demon this quickly without using an ounce of light element. Captain! The captives are gone! They are gone! Bullet screamed with an aghast expression the moment he was revived. He didn't even bother to think for a second about the ambush, as the only thing on his mind was eating purities. Now that they had lost the captives, he knew that his weekly share of purities was going to be merely standard to ensure his rationality from going away. We got a much more serious sh*t to handle. Demon Captain Short scolded before using the demon contract between him and King Action to communicate. My king! My people have been ambushed by an unfamiliar strong race. I think our planet has been invaded. Mother ***. Get your ass back to the capital quickly. We are being invaded by them as we speak. King Action cursed him off before cutting off the connection. Boom! Just as he was about to react, Demon Captain Short picked up the noise of a thundering explosion coming from the city's direction. When he turned his head to face the city's direction, his demonic red eyes widened to the limit at the sight of a long thin white beam from the sky connecting with a massive blinding dome. One by one the demons remained staring at the white dome with similar horrified expressions the moment they were revived. None of them knew what was that beam of light, but their instincts screamed at them to get the ***ck away from it if they value their lives. Captain, can we not return to the city so soon? Bullet gulped a mouthful in fear. We received an order to return. You know the rules. As much as Demon Captain Short wanted desperately to listen to his instincts, King Action's order made it impossible. Just as he was about to take his first step, his body suddenly shivered, making him halt in his place right away. The original appearance of this chapter can be found at N0v3l.b1n. He knew immediately what caused this shiver, and yet he couldn't believe it no matter what. Impossible, impossible! How can he drop dead for real? He yelled out loud akin to a madman in front of his squad. Captain, what happened? Bullet asked with a distressed tone. He wasn't really worried about his captain but more about himself, since his life depended on his captain's condition. King Action is dead. Demon Captain Short shared with a faint mumble, like he wasn't physically capable of saying it. Hey? After that demonic explosion, it's doubtful for anyone to survive it. Bullet was confused, though. He will get revived after evil energy regathers itself. You don't get it. Demon Captain Short looked at him with a never-seen-before level of terror in his eyes. Our soul contract was severed. He is dead for real. The moment the last statement entered everyone's ears, a deathly silence fell in the area as everyone was left staring at their captain with a look of utter disbelief. They wanted to call him a liar and bullsh**ter, but they knew that their captain wouldn't be joking around in such a critical situation. But at the same time, it was just too hard for them to believe that their demon king of more than 100,000 years had dropped dead this easily. Unbeknownst to them, the enemies they were facing were nothing like Luminaris or any other race they met. This was just the beginning of the conquest. 1293 A cowardly queen? Target has been eliminated. Commander Nethrail announced calmly as he watched a mushroom cloud rising up to the sky. It was so massive, it covered the entire demon city and outside of its walls, making it impossible to see the extent of the damage. I doubt any demon will be able to resurrect after this. Asna remarked. Likewise. Felix nodded with a solemn tone. He was certain that even the Netherling King should have dropped dead for real, since the nuke dropped on them had utterly wiped out hundreds of kilometers of surface area. This was more than enough to erase whatever evil energy was in the vicinity. Since demons' resurrections occur only when they had a link to nearby evil energy, cutting off their connection in such a forceful manner made it impossible for them to resurrect. Unless there was another method of resurrection they had no clue about. Are the captives good? Queen Allura asked. All of them must have been put into long slumbers, as we are still unable to wake them up after breaking the coffins. Commander Nethrail reported his findings. Before the city was blown out, his elite task force consisting of strong fighters and battle space worms managed to hit all of the dungeons under the city and rescue the captives in less than 10 seconds. With the space worm's spatial portals, it was a light work mission. The other fleets also got into action and rescued the other captives around the demon territory. Since they are considered as nothing but stored food, they must have been put in comas to limit their energy consumption and in turn limit the required nutrition. Queen Allura ordered, start them on new diets and wait for them to wake up naturally to avoid any system shocks. Understood. Commander Nethrail nodded and forwarded the order to his subordinates. I honestly didn't think the demons will be this easy to handle. Emperor Local grinned, it's really easy to lose track of how strong the Alliance's weaponry systems. Let's not get too cocky. Queen Alfreda said calmly, the Netherlings are a mere bunch of rogue demons situated at the edge of their universe. They might not match us in technological advancements, but this didn't mean that other demons are the same. She is right. Minister Aquarius supported with a stoic tone, if demons lack in technology, they must have something just as better to help them conquer the other side and have 7 demon realms in it. The Alliance's technology was obviously on a different level due to the metal race involvement, but this didn't mean that other races would be nothing without them. Should we begin with eliminating the remaining demons around the planet? Commander Nethrail requested permission. It will be difficult without nuke-level power or individuals capable of interdimensional abilities. Felix responded. Felix didn't want to turn the planet into a wasteland more than it was by using mass destruction weapons for each small patch of demons. That was just madly inefficient. So, what do you suggest? Leave them be for now. Felix said calmly, we have already eliminated more than 80% of demons on this planet and even their king. As long as we gather all Luminaris in their capital city and protect them, those demons will be forced to group up and launch an invasion on the capital to feed on their purities. Then, we can nuke them before that happens. With just a bit of information about demons, and Felix was already finding their weaknesses left and right. The fact that demons' greatest nightmare was associated with something controllable made it easier to predict and manipulate them. That's indeed much better than a useless goose chase. No one disapproved of the plan as it made the most sense. On the opposite side of the planet, the Luminaris capital city was as bustling and bright as ever, but this time, it was for a different reason entirely. Did a volcano erupt on the demon's territory? God, I hope so. All of the Luminaris around the city was discussing the echo of the thundering explosion that traveled across the entire globe. Everyone noticed that the source was in the demon's territory, which brightened the day of some and made others a bit worried. Are we going to be attacked by the demons? A beautiful short-haired little girl murmured with a scared expression. She was holding hands with a middle-aged man who had a long black mustache and somewhat dim-lighted wings, unlike the little girl. That's impossible unless they want to get themselves killed as well. The middle-aged man comforted his daughter with a confident tone. Why? Because we are much stronger than them. The middle-aged man spoke with an exaggerated cocky tone, but deep inside, he was smiling bitterly. His child was still too young to understand the f***ed reality of their situation. But, the moment she grew up, she would start seeing the truth, the hideous and traumatizing truth. The truth of this capital, and why was it still standing without a single demon coming near it? Daddy, what's that? Suddenly, his daughter pointed her finger at the sky with a curious expression. When her father lifted his head, his eyes couldn't help but pop out of his sockets in utter shock at the unbelievable sight before him. Oh God! Is the sky falling? Mommy! One by one, the pedestrians shared the middle-aged man's reaction as their feet were frozen in utter horror at the sight of the Gamma mothership entering the atmosphere right above the city. It was so freakishly massive. It was thousands of kilometers in the sky, casting a massive shadow on the city and completely hiding the sun forever. Although the sun was nowhere to be seen, the mothership was packed with blinking lights that made it resemble a canvas. Although the sun was nowhere to be seen, the mothership was packed with blinking lights that made it resemble a canvas for a river of stars. Meanwhile, in the biggest palace in the city, the luminous royal family's members had their mouths agape and hearts clutched tightly in fear and agitation. All of the royal family members in the throne chamber turned to look at their queen for answers, but her stunned expression made them realize that she had nothing to do with this situation. My queen. Just as the guard got control over his chaotic emotions and wanted to take his queen to the safe room, an illuminating spatial portal opened up in the center of the throne chamber. This caught everyone by surprise and made them activate their strongest light abilities to protect themselves and most importantly their queen. However, the instant Mika walked out of the spatial portal and released her spiritual pressure, everyone dropped to the ground but the queen. She wasn't tough, it was simply Mika taking it easy on her. Mika stepped to the side and lowered her head in respect to her king who walked outside of the portal right after her. The moment the queen saw Felix's appearance, her eyes widened in disbelief while her heart sunk to the bottom of her stomach in horror. Even her legs seemed to start shaking, making it impossible for her to remain standing on her feet. When Felix saw her reaction, he was turned completely speechless. He looked at Mika and asked, "Is there something in my face?" "No." Mika tilted her head in confusion at the queen's reaction. "Ha ha ha ha. It must be your demonic appearance. You look more like a demon than demons themselves." Asna laughed out loud in amusement. "Is it really that?" Felix had a displeased look. "I knew my appearance won't be too liked around here, but I didn't think a queen will react this poorly. No wonder their race is F***ed. When the Luminaris queen saw Felix's expression turning for the worst, she fell on her knees immediately and begged with a tearful tone, "Please forgive me. Please don't eradicate my people. Please. Please." The inaugural upload of this chapter took place via /n/ov/l/b/in. This time even the inner circle leaders and 10 rulers were left utterly speechless at this queen's cowardness. She literally knelt before she could even ask for Felix's name, which made them wonder if they went too much with the fear factor. They got their mothership close to the city and sent their Grand Supreme to the meeting for the sake of making the royal family cave in as smoothly as possible. But now? They had no clue what to think. "Is it just me or does it seem like she recognizes you?" Thor wondered lazily. "I think so too." Hormungandr nodded. "How can that be right?" Felix was bewildered by their assumption. He had never shown himself around here and he doubted that the Luminaris were capable of seeing the future. Before he could question their assumption any further, the queen finally lifted her head and requested with a stutter, "O great democrat! On King Lucifer, I am willing to make my race a farming zone under your allegiance. Just please don't eradicate us." "Demon King Lucifer? Hey! Come again!" This time everyone was left stunned. 1294. Is it really a coincidence? Felix looked at Mika and saw that she was also looking back at him with the same baffled look. "Woman, I think you are mistaking me for someone else." Felix said with a deep frown, "Do you see me releasing any evil energy?" Luminaris Queen first thought Felix was messing with her to ease his boredom. But, when she finally gathered her **t together and looked at him carefully, she realized that there wasn't an ounce of evil energy around him. "Hey? It can't be." With a startled and confused expression, she slowly stood back up on her feet. "What can't be? How can you have mistaken my liege for a demon king? Who even is this demon king that made you forsake your dignity like this?" Mika fired a chain of questions with a serious tone. "You really aren't Demon King Lucifer." The queen still seemed unable to accept this truth as she kept sizing up Felix from top to bottom. "I am King Maxwell, the Grand Supreme of the SG Alliance. I came here with my people to free everyone from the demonic enslavement." Felix introduced himself with a noble cause to be looked at with a good perspective. After all, no one would like the sound of the Alliance coming here to conquer everything. SG Alliance, freeing from the demonic enslavement? The queen murmured with a look of bewilderment. Not saying much, Felix displayed 2 holographic screens in front of the queen. One showed the current erased Netherlings city and the other was displaying all of the Luminaris captives sleeping in medical pods. "Is that?" The queen covered her mouth in shock, not daring to believe what her eyes were feeding her. Sit down, we have a lot to talk about. Felix said calmly. Knowing that it was difficult to trust him, Felix took his time to explain everything to the queen. With the abundance of evidence backing him up, the queen had no choice but to believe him and accept everything that she heard, even when he was a spitting image of the infamous demon king Lucifer. After an hour or less of such discussion, both parties seemed more comfortable with each other. Mika awakened the rest of the royal family while the alliance hid the mothership from the sky to avoid any more chaos arising in the city. As for the Luminaris queen, she introduced herself as the 12th ruler Melisande Danica. She finally acted as a respectful host and brought them to the meeting room to continue their discussion. Some of the royal family attended the meeting too. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0v3L.bin. I really can't believe it, there was a much bigger universe on the other side of the eternal darkness. Queen Danica shook her head, seemingly still having difficulty wrapping this idea in her mind even when she was shown more than enough evidence. There aren't demons there and all races are living in harmony and order. I'm starting to think that's more like paradise. Prince Kala muttered with an excited tone. He was her son and the only heir to the throne after the king had passed away during the most brutal and cruel demon invasion the Luminaris had ever gone through in their history. You are all free to join as an alliance member. You will be subjected to the same rules and terms as every member while at the same time, you will benefit from everything the alliance can offer. Felix said calmly. What's the alternative? Queen Danica asked, even though she had already made up her mind to join the alliance, as it would be foolish to refuse the recruitment. You will be treated somewhat better than the demons. Felix replied with a stoic expression. The moment the royal family members heard this, chills coursed down their spine after recalling a recording shown to them of the demon city getting absolutely obliterated in a split second. They all knew the SG alliance was just as fearsome as demons, if not scarier. How do we join? Queen Danica smiled. Before that, I believe you owe me an explanation. Felix narrowed his eyes at her. About that? Queen Danica looked at her son and family members, then she excused them from the meeting against their silent protests. When it was just her, Felix, and Mika, she pointed her slender finger at the air and began waving it around. As she moved her finger through the air, a trail of shimmering light followed in its wake. With each delicate gesture, the light grew more complex, weaving and looping in intricate colorful patterns that seemed to take on a life of their own. Queen Danica's eyes were fixed on the ethereal canvas before her, her lips pursed in concentration as she continued to shape the vibrant hues with her fingertips. As the colors swirled and danced around her, a faint hum filled the air as if the very fabric of reality were vibrating in response to the woman's magic. It was clear that this was no ordinary art, it was a manifestation of her raw creativity and perfect manipulation of light wavelengths to gain access to all colors. Before Felix and Mika could wake up from such a mesmerizing art form, Queen Danica pulled back her finger and introduced with a slight tremor in her voice, "This is Demon King Lucifer, the first natural-born demon from pure evil energy. You're screwing with me, right?" Felix was left utterly speechless as the three-dimensional piece of art she made was that of himself. Tall overbearing man with shoulder-length crimson hair, two dark demonic horns, grey ashy skin, and almost a replica of his facial features. The only difference was that the root gemstone in his forehead, the skin cracks, and 9 sacred royal gemstones weren't there. You understand now why I misidentified you? Queen Danica smiled wryly, the resemblance is just too uncanny. It sure is. Asna remarked with a curious tone. Well, your appearance is quite demonic, so this demon king Lucifer isn't the one looking like you are the one taking after his appearance, plus, he was born much earlier than you. Candace reasoned. That's true, but the resemblance is really too uncanny. It's like we were cut from the same mold. Felix murmured as he got his face close to the light painting before him. He, she said that he was the first demon born out of pure evil energy, yet, he has taken your features, I guess evil recognizes evil after all. Asna giggled in amusement. Shut up. Felix's eyelids twitched at her teasing. Is this really just a coincidence, though? Hormungandr frowned. Hey! Can it be anything else? Asna and the others were somewhat taken aback by his suspicion. In their eyes, even though it seemed weird for Felix to resemble the Demon King Lucifer's appearance, they were sure it was nothing but a coincidence. After all, Felix's facial features weren't that unique to not have a single person in the entire universe not match them. I don't know, after what happened during Lord Zervan's visit, I find it hard to believe in such coincidences anymore. Hormungandr disclosed. You think it's those beings doing? Thor narrowed his eyes. When those beings were included in the conversation, Lord Shiva lowered his three-eyed sunglasses and watched the tenants up close with an interested expression. Well, if they were really the ones leaving the ceiling hall for Felix to mess with him and Asna, then who can say that they didn't create an evil version of him for the sake of their entertainment? Hormungandr suspected. We just found out that almost everyone in the universe is for their entertainment. It's not too far-fetched to believe the rest. But, the Demon King Lucifer must have been born tens of millions of years ago if not hundreds of millions. Do you really think they will go so far as to prepare this much just to create an entertaining scenario? Thor doubted. You guys have no clue what those F***ers will do to make their lives just slightly more amusing. Lord Shiva snickered. This is nothing to them. When even Lord Shiva supported this theory, Felix and Asna stopped taking this matter as a joke, but still, there wasn't really much to work with as they only had a mere resemblance to Felix. We have to learn more about this Demon King Lucifer. If those beings really had a hand in this, then there must be some hints left behind. Even if this theory was far too fetched, Felix would rather investigate it like it was true and see where it would lead him. Without further ado, Felix refocused on Queen Danica and asked with a solemn tone, "Please tell me everything you know about this guy, Lucifer." 1295 A shocking theory. Well, I don't know much more than what was released by the demons themselves to the public. Queen Danica shared. Demon King Lucifer is said to be the first prince demon born out of evil energy, and he was followed by the remaining 6 princes. Unlike them, the rest of the demons across the entire universe are born out of the corruption of the living. If he is a prince, why are you referring to him as a demon king? All of the 7 princes are considered demon kings in their own demon realms. But only Lucifer can be proclaimed as the sole demon king of all 7 demon realms due to him being the strongest, most authoritative prince, plus having the biggest demon realm of them all. The remaining princes were at peace with this at the beginning since they couldn't beat him to the throne, but after the Demon King Lucifer went into isolation at the depth of his realm for more than hundreds of thousands of years, the 6 princes have been vying to dethrone him for real. Isolation at the depth of his realm for such a long time. Felix frowned. Doesn't he care that he will lose his throne? I don't know, and no one really knows what's in his mind, not even the demon princes. Queen Danica shook her head. Does anyone know what he is doing in his isolation? Well, there are some rumors. Queen Danica shared. I have heard that he is praying in front of the darkness well for the demon god to awaken and lead the demons to a better place. Darkness well? Demon god? Leading to a better place? What are you talking about? The more Felix heard about the demons, the more confused he got. Unlike Queen Danica and others, he knew about the universe true higher up, and he had never heard of the existence of a demon god, which made him assume that it was more of a religious belief. Queen Danica confirmed it. Demons are believed to have been born because of the darkness well. I never saw it before, but from the ancient documentation of my ancestors, it's a pitch black hole that is releasing the most potent and purest form of evil energy in the entire universe. No one knows what's inside the pitch black hole, as anyone who went through it gets erased instantly from existence. With this kind of omnipotence and source of demons being related heavily to the darkness well, the demons started to believe that their god was living inside and considered the darkness well as their sacred worshipping ground. A pitch black hole that emits potent evil energy and kills anyone stepping inside of it, doesn't it remind you of something? Felix asked as he looked at the tenants inside his consciousness space. A void rift? Candace inquired. Exactly. Felix nodded. You don't think? I do. Is there anything else that makes more sense? Felix replied with a serious tone. Evil energy, demons, a slumbering paragon of sins, uncontrollable pressure, darkness well, demon god, and the list goes on. When Felix connected the dots, he couldn't help but reach a reasonable but mind-blowing truth. Evil energy's main source is the paragon of sins, which means those demons are born because of him. In Felix's mind, if the darkness well was nothing but a natural-born permanent void rift that was opened extremely close to the paragon of sins slumbers area, then it wasn't far-fetched to assume that he had a correlation to the birth of the demons. As for the evil energy, while not even Primogenitor seemed to know that it was related to the paragon of sins, he was considered the evilest entity in the universe by default. If literal energy based on evil existed in the universe, it was sensible to assume that the paragon of sins had a hand in it. Since demons were considered as a newly born race like humans, dragons, elves, and such races without connection to Primogenitor's family tree, Felix discerned that the universe had given birth to the first 7 demons after the potent evil energy interacted with something outside of the void realm. Do you think my theory is correct? Felix asked as he looked at Lady Sphinx. I can't confirm it, but based on our current intel, it's the closest to the truth. Lady Sphinx replied. It was a solid theory and Lady Sphinx had already considered it way before, but because there wasn't any concrete evidence to support it, she had no reason to publish it. This is really shocking. Even while he is asleep, he is still spreading chaos in the universe. Thor commented. Are you saying demons are actually the void creature's cousins? Candace wasn't too pleased with this assumption. Most likely, but it's still weird that demons can't survive void energy or interact with it while you guys also can't manipulate evil energy. Felix frowned. Felix had already made Mika and many other Void Nations subordinates attempt to freely interact with the evil energy. But instead of getting corrupted like the living, the evil energy completely ignored their existence. At the same time, they couldn't control it to do anything for them. It was like both parties acknowledging each other's existence but had no effect on the other. Meanwhile, the demon's interaction with void energy was just as brutal as anyone without immunity, but Felix wasn't planning to take these results as the final verdict since the 7 princes were clearly born out of a different mold than the rest of the demons. Well, we do have a little paragon of sins in our hands. Asna suggested lazily, just see if he can control evil energy, a demon, or such. If the other paragon can do it, so can Nemo. Already planning to do it. Felix sighed in relief, good thing we didn't send Nemo with my main consciousness. Felix kept Nemo with his clone the moment he realized that other void creatures could not enter the void realm due to the paragon of sin's uncounterable pressure. He didn't think that this decision would come in handy much sooner than anticipated. For now, he decided to continue getting information about Lucifer and the other princes. Sorry for spacing out. Felix apologized first before asking, do the Demon King and other princes have different kinds of powers than lesser demons? Like the ability to grant wishes, get bigger through food, manipulate people with lust, or such unique abilities? Not that I know of. Queen Danica placed a finger on her lips as she recalled, I don't know about the abilities you named, but I know that they can manipulate almost all elements by corrupting them first with evil energy. Felix's eyes widened in shock at the sound of that. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0v3l.bin. You didn't know? Queen Danica showed a stern expression before warning him, you should not underestimate those princes. Their manipulation of evil energy is so great they can swiftly corrupt any solid, liquid, gas, or energy-based element and be able to manipulate it too. For example, if they were fighting against a fire elementalist, any fire ability used against them will be turned into corrupted dark flames and it will gain the properties of evil energy. This means the fire elementalist will have no control over it and the princes can use it to corrupt him. That's indeed worrisome. Felix was told that evil energy could corrupt even elements. But he didn't expect that the demon princes could take advantage of it this much. It literally made them immune to all elements that weren't considered concepts or forceful enough to ignore the corruption like void energy. I am not done yet. Queen Danica added, what's scary about them the most is the fact that they can get resurrected in any area of the universe as long as they have a mere hair strand or a body part near an evil energy source. This means they are unkillable even if you used that powerful laser weapon. 1296 A livestock farm. That does change everything. Felix frowned. Felix knew that the Alliance could handle anything thrown at them by the demons, but this was going to be really tough to deal with. The fact that the 7 princes were capable of resurrecting themselves anywhere made it close to impossible to eradicate the demons no matter how hard the Alliance tried. They could weaken them and even conquer the entire 7 demon realms, but, as long as the 7 princes were alive, they would always be able to demonize the living and create a never-ending army. We have to come up with something to deal with them. Queen Alfreda said. We can invade their memories and find out all the locations of their spread-out body parts. Queen Allura suggested. First, it's doubtful if even they knew of their locations as they can just give them to their subordinates and tell them to hide them. Second, those princes are clearly too strong for us to risk capturing them instead of straight-out killing them. Emperor Local retorted. Let's leave this for later. Many Sideraquaries said as refocused on Felix's discussion with Queen Danica. The 7 princes' immortality is what helped them conquer our universe. Queen Danica sighed, back in the day, my race had an entire empire covering more than 20% of the 7 realm demons' territory. There were other races just as strong if not stronger than us. We ruled our side of the universe and lived in a conflicted but manageable situation. All of this changed when the 7 princes were born and began spreading evil energy on each planet they stepped on. From mere 7 princes, hundreds, thousands, and before we know it, millions of demons were born and an unfathomable number of planets have fallen. Against this common enemy, all empires and kingdoms have created an alliance and fought against them. You failed. No, we actually succeeded in killing most of the demons and even 6 princes besides Lucifer. Queen Danica shook her head, but, we had no clue at that time about the prince's immortality. They went into hiding for a long duration, taking their sweet time to build new armies. When our empires started raging actual wars with each other for territory, they launched their attack and ended up triumphing over us at our weakest. Ever since then, the empires began losing their territories and people at a rapid pace until the 7 demon realms were born. The only citizen left from those empires were either used in farming areas or had escaped to the edges of the universe and rebuilt their civilizations. Queen Danica smiled wryly. My people are the last line of the Luminaris race and as their queen, I feel obliged to try everything to keep our bloodline alive. That's why you offered to turn your race into a farm under Lucifer's allegiance when you saw me. Felix stated. Queen Danica nodded her head with a tint of shame in her eyes. Mind if I ask how it works? Felix inquired. You knew. Queen Danica tightened her fists under the table while keeping her expression as stoic as possible. It wasn't difficult to guess. The moment Felix learned about the demons' food and their way of getting it, he already foresaw that the demons would always prioritize a peaceful treaty with other races. A peace treaty in the sense that the demons wouldn't need to invade their targets' territories and let them live a peaceful life. The inaugural upload of this chapter took place via /n/ov/l/b/in. However, they would be forced to hand them a constant supply of captives to keep both parties alive. This was the real meaning of becoming a demon's farm, as those races existed for the sake of the demons' survivability. The demons were smart enough to realize that the moment they get rid of their livestock, they would lose any more sources of food and end up without their rationality. In this case, the Luminaris royal family was clearly in a peace treaty with the Netherlings. Otherwise, there was no way both parties would have coexisted for such a long time on a single planet. Queen Danica found it difficult to talk about this as it was really not a pleasant subject. It must have been hard. You have no idea. Queen Danica bit her lower lip until it was about to bleed. No one here is going to judge you. I just want to know how does this farm system works. Felix comforted. He truly had no plans to judge her as he wasn't put in a similar scenario before. This scenario was far more brutal than anything one could go through. To be given two options, either peacefully sacrificing a portion of their race or having them all killed off, was no simple choice to make. My late husband has always refused to cooperate with the Netherlings and agree to turn our kingdom into a farm. He has paid the price for his stubbornness and caused more than 60% of our people to get either demonized or killed off. Almost all of the cities across the continent have fallen under his rulership. Queen Danica spoke with a look of resentment. I know that he was the king and he has the royal family's dignity to uphold, but this should be an option only if he had a chance to win against those villainous demons. As much as I take pride in my race and kingdom, I knew from the start that we have zero chance of defeating the Netherlings. Our bodies are weak and our elemental abilities can't be used when our energy stones mines have been raided by the demons and destroyed. We were utterly hopeless to their invasions and he still refused to accept the deal. He could have saved us all, but he was too proud to surrender, too proud. Tears stung her eyes as she thought of the carnage that had followed her husband's refusal to surrender to the demon invaders. The streets had run red with the blood of her people, their screams still echoing in her ears. If he had listened to me, we would have had much more of our citizens still breathing and alive. Queen Danica lifted her head and looked at Felix with moist reddened eyes. See, I made the right decision, right? I made the right decision. It was like she was asking for a confirmation to ease just a bit of her crippling guilt about turning her kingdom into the Netherlings' livestock farm. God knows how much of her own citizens she actively handed to the Netherlings' demons. Whether it was one or thousands, the guilt would eat anyone alive. There are no wrong or right decisions in your situation. Felix narrowed his eyes. There are just results. In your case, your bet has paid off and your bloodline has been saved. As long as you are a member of the SG Alliance, your race won't need to worry ever again about demons. Mika added calmly. Queen Danica lowered her head and left her tears falling unchecked. She knew that her anger and guilt would never fade, but she would carry them with her always. A reminder of the cost of her husband's pride and her weakness as a ruler who couldn't protect her citizens through and through. When Queen Danica regained control over her emotions, she cleaned herself up and restored her royal image. If it wasn't for Felix and Mika being outsiders and of a much higher position than her, she would have kept everything bottled up. But now, she was somewhat at peace with speaking about the farm's details. I don't know about other demons and their farm deals. But the one erected with the Netherlings is simple in nature. Queen Danica shared, on a yearly basis, I have to release at least 100 random citizens above the age of 18 to the wilderness. Whatever happens to them won't be the capital city's problem. The citizens are okay with this. Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. They aren't dumb. We never had a problem with a yearly batch before, since all adults understand that the only reason the capital is still standing is because of this secret peace treaty. Queen Danica smiled bitterly. If Felix managed to come to the conclusion that the demons and Luminaris were in a deal to keep the balance, then it was obvious that the rest of the Luminaris would be on to this. Since they were getting kicked out of the city instead of being handed directly into the demons, this gave them at least a bit of hope of survival. We direct them to hidden underground locations and give them some resources to live by. Our part of the deal is done and it's up to the demons to find them. Why did the Netherlings accept this deal? Just like we have no choice but to do this to ensure our bloodline survival, they also have no choice but to accept our conditions. Queen Danica said coldly, I refuse to hand my people directly in their hands. That's my bottom line. 1297 Busting Nemo's alter ego. Understandable. Felix nodded before sharing, by the way, we have rescued some survivors living underneath a ruined city. They told us that the city was recently invaded, like in a couple of years back or less. The inaugural upload of this chapter took place via N0Vel BJN. That must be the city of Samaria. Queen Danica sighed. it's the furthest city from the capital. If our source of communication hasn't been cut off from them, I would have told them to drop their weapons and surrender like us. That's unfortunate. Anyhow, I believe we have spoken enough for today. I will send my subordinates to handle your recruitment process. You can share the news with the citizens and let them know that their days of darkness are over. I don't know how can I ever thank you for your help, you are truly our savior. Just help us out with recruiting other races during our upcoming exploration. We need a native to make it easier to convince others. After finishing his piece with a smile, Felix took off from within a spatial portal and reappeared on his spaceship. The rest of the integration could be handled by the appropriate alliance's staff. A couple of hours later, the city was packed with festivities as the Luminaries were all celebrating their successful recruitment to the SG Alliance and the elimination of their mortal enemies, the Netherlings. Most of the captives had woken up and regrouped with their family members, making their day just get even better. As the ones responsible for fulfilling those wishes, the SG Alliance had been praised and glorified by the Luminaries. This successful conquest and rescue story had been edited and shared with the public, gaining even more applause and gratification from the Scallian's citizens. Right now, the Alliance's staff were focusing on fortifying the city defenses with their advanced technologies and also handing out AP bracelets and teaching the Luminaries how to use them. Unlike the situation with the Earthlings, the Luminaries were helped to hasten their integration since their planet was one of the Alliance's first strongholds on the other side. While all of this was happening, Felix was focusing on his own experiment. Nothing. Is our original theory wrong fundamentally? Felix pondered as he watched Nemo fooling around with a piece of Beelzebub's demonic statue. It was still releasing a tiny bit of evil energy and Felix handed it to Nemo so he could test out if it was possible for him to manipulate it. Unfortunately, Nemo seemed detached from the evil energy. It's highly unlikely that it's wrong. It makes too much sense to be wrong. Asna said. Then? Why isn't he responding to evil energy? Felix held his chin thoughtfully. Nemo is the paragon of Sin's replacement, so he is supposed to be his perfect copy. Maybe he hasn't awakened it yet. Asna probed. Nemo can't even use the 7 Sins laws as well as his alter's ego. Maybe evil energy manipulation and such could be unlocked only after his awakening. That makes sense. Felix supported. He had already noticed the massive difference between Nemo and his alter ego when it came to law manipulation. If Nemo doesn't know he can control evil energy, then his alter ego should know. Felix narrowed his eyes. How do we get him to cooperate though? Felix knew that bastard would most definitely either lie to them or ignore them completely. Ask him and see. Asna shrugged her shoulders. I got it. Felix smirked. Nemo, can you bring out your alter ego? Nemo's facial expression got annoyed at the request. Clearly, he didn't want to let that prick out, but he still obliged. Whoosh! Akin to a dragon arising, Nemo's alter ego emerged from the little raccoon. He lowered his horse-like head and gave Felix a condescending glare. What? Unbeknownst to Felix and the others, he was feeling a bit nervous at the thought of his secret plan getting found out before he could even kick it off. Be honest, can you manipulate evil energy? Felix asked in a straightforward manner. Even if I could, you think I will tell you? Idiot! Nemo's alter ego scoffed. So, you're telling me you can manipulate it? That's good to hear. No. I said even if I can manipulate it I won't say it. All I am hearing is that you can manipulate it and you refuse to accept it. Stop twisting my words. I can't manipulate it. Alright. Now you are just trying to gaslight me. Choose whatever you want to believe, you annoying prick. I choose to believe that you can control it and you are hiding it for some reason. Arg, I am done here. Don't call me again. With a series of censored angry curses, Nemo's alter ego went away as swiftly as he appeared. I don't know why is he always so mad? Felix said with an innocent look. Asna ignored his shameless innocent act and asked, "You really think he can manipulate evil energy and possibly even demons, but he is hiding it? Let's ask the expert." Felix inquired, "Master, was he telling the truth?" "No." Lady Sphinx replied calmly. "Now we have a certain answer." Felix smirked faintly. Felix wanted Nemo's alter ego to directly say that he couldn't control evil energy, so Lady Sphinx's lie radar would be activated. If he kept his answer vague and ambiguous, it would have been much more difficult. Bastard! Nemo's alter ego didn't like falling into this trap one bit, as his resentment towards Felix just got worse. Now that we have confirmed it, the demons were really born because of the paragon of sins. Felix sighed. Felix would have been much happier with these results if Nemo and his alter ego were merged. After all, those demons would be turned into his subordinates just like the void creatures with Nemo's innate domination. This would make this conquest end in less than a couple of years at best. That irritating prick doesn't seem like he is planning on giving up anytime soon. Felix said with a vexed tone as he rubbed Nemo's belly. "You should work harder on helping them merge together." Lady Sphinx warned, "If Nemo's alter ego can manipulate evil energy, this means he can also absorb it. Since Nemo has absolutely no control over evil energy, he can't stop him even if he wanted." Felix and Asna were left startled as this issue didn't come up in their minds at all. **T, maybe this bastard wasn't giving up because of this." Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. He realized that if Nemo's alter ego was truly plotting to gain control in this manner, then there was no reason for him to consider the merge in the first place. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Nemo's alter ego wasn't pleased in the slightest by getting found out this early. He knew that even if they kept Nemo around, they would make sure that he never come close to evil energy. "I am done playing games. This is getting too dangerous. We need a new way to either force the merge or get rid of him." Asna noted with an icy tone. Asna loved Nemo dearly, but he proved to be a walking time bomb and they had no idea when it would blow in Felix's face. If she had to be a cold B***tch for Felix's safety and send Nemo away, then so be it. "We can just keep him away from evil energy." "No, he will find another way to gain control." Asna stressed, "Your method isn't working and it's foolish to keep giving him free time like this." "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Don't suggest throwing Nemo away," Felix said with a stern tone. Felix would rather keep on trying to humiliate Nemo's alter ego until he gave in than send Nemo away. For starters, he couldn't do that to Nemo as he considered him as a family. Secondly, he believed that it was best to keep Nemo around him to supervise him. After all, if his alter ego won the battle and gained control, there was a good chance that he would hunt down Felix as a payback for all the humiliation he went through. He was already struggling against 3 primogenitors, he had no plans to add a literal unigen to his enemies list. "You can't even solve this and you want my destruction manipulation?" Lord Shiva suddenly mocked. Felix remained silent. He knew that each primogenitor had criteria to bestow their perfect manipulations. While he had gotten it easy with other primogenitors, Lord Shiva clearly had many doubts about him even with all of his achievements. That's because he was one of the few ones who knew how terrifying those beings were. So, unless Felix managed to convince him of his potential, he could forget about earning his perfect manipulation. Felix closed his eyes and got in the zone to brainstorm a solution to this predicament. Lord Shiva is always a silent observant. Yet, he commentated on this situation. This signifies that he found a method to solve this problem. Since no one else has figured it out, it must be related to his destruction element. Felix didn't know if he was on the right track or not, but he kept brainstorming, is there really a way to use a destruction ability to handle this situation? Felix started by applying each destruction ability in his possession to this dilemma and seeing if one would stick. When he reached concept destruction trident and applied it in multiple different ways, it finally clicked in his mind. "How did I miss this?" Felix exclaimed, I can use concept destruction trident to mark Nemo's alter ego consciousness and erase it from existence, leaving only Nemo's consciousness. 1298 The plan to get rid of Nemo's alter ego. That can be done. Asna raised an eyebrow in surprise. Theoretically, yes. Felix paced back and forth with an excited expression as he explained, concept destruction trident can destroy anything marked and leave the rest untouched. Since Nemo possessed two consciousness and one soul, I can totally get rid of his alter ego in this fashion without harming Nemo at all. Everyone turned to look at Lord Shiva for confirmation, and his nonchalant attitude made them realize that it was totally doable. Alas, life wasn't this easy. Don't get too excited. Lady Sphinx shared, if you got rid of Nemo's alter ego, there is a high chance he will be gone with all of his awakening memories and power ups. This means Nemo would possibly be left stagnated in this form forever unless the universe did something to fix it. This chapter made its debut appearance via N0/Vel, B/J, N. Yug, that does sound likely to happen. Felix's excitement died off immediately as he returned to his seat with somewhat of a dejected expression. Felix wanted Nemo to stay with him and be safe and sound, but at the same time, he felt hesitant to completely kill off his future. The universe wouldn't be too pleased with this and would most likely create a new replacement for the replacement. In addition, Lord Cowes wouldn't approve of this, as he had told him during their deal that Felix shouldn't interfere in Nemo's natural development. Well, even if Nemo's replacement was born, it will take a very long time before he hatches from the egg and matures to the point he will be a threat to you. Asna said, I honestly would rather have Nemo remain this cutie forever than merge with that irritating bastard. Still, it's not alright to hinder Nemo's growth forever. Felix murmured, there has to be another way. Now that Felix knew that he could use the concept destruction trident, he brainstormed for a new method. What if I used the trident to mark not Nemo's alter ego consciousness but the link that keeps them connected? Felix pondered, if this link is destroyed, there will be two Nemos with two different souls. Highly doubtful if it is going to work. Souls shouldn't be messed with if you have no idea what you are doing. Asna shook her head. What do you think, Elder Kraken? Felix inquired. It really depends on the trident and mark's accuracy. Elder Kraken replied as he eyed Lord Shiva. My abilities are precise. Lord Shiva didn't bother to glance at him. If they are accurate, then it's possible to sever two consciousnesses in one soul if the soul itself was powerful enough to handle the separation. Elder Kraken said calmly. Wait a second, if this is actually doable, then can it be used on Asna and Felix to separate their soul? Thor disclosed with a surprised tone. Felix and Asna looked at each other with frozen expressions at the sound of that. Both of their hearts started accelerating as various emotions raged inside their minds and bodies at the notion of their souls finally separating apart. Alas, before those emotions could spill out, Elder Kraken brought them crashing down with, their situation isn't the same though. Nemo has one soul and two consciousness while Asna and Felix had two souls merged as one. They shouldn't even have a link connecting them together as the merge was too perfect. This means if the trident was used, it will be extremely tough on Asna's soul, but Felix's soul won't be able to even handle a second of the process and would die out. I see, that's unfortunate. Felix sighed in disappointment. It's okay, we still have our original plan in hand. Asna comforted him with a gentle smile. I will make it work no matter what. Felix promised. I know. Asna smiled. Sorry to interrupt your lovey-dovey thing, but even if we managed to separate Nemo and his alter ego's consciousness, what will we do next? Thor shook his head, kill the alter's ego. We can do it already. Send him away? It's too risky and he might come back for vengeance and to reconnect with Nemo to be at his full strength. I was thinking of using this. Felix said as he took out the fake sun disk earring. Interesting. Hormungandr and others showed intrigued looks. They understood immediately that Felix planned on sealing Nemo's alter ego consciousness within the sealing hall. Since it was powerful enough to seal even Asna for millions of years, there was no way Nemo's alter ego would be able to. Since it was powerful enough to seal even Asna for millions of years, there was no way Nemo's alter ego would be able to escape on his own. The fact that Asna was sealed for more than 20 million years and the universe hadn't bothered to make a replacement for her only meant that it wasn't a severe situation like the Paragon of Sins who lost the plot and kept abusing his powers. This is shaping to be an actual solid plan. Thor remarked, though, does any one of you knows how to use it? When he said this, everyone turned to look at Asna. In their eyes, she must have studied everything about the sealing hall to free herself. As expected, Asna nodded her head with a look of slight discomfort. Is everything okay? Felix stressed, we don't need to do this if you weren't feeling it. It's all right, I just recalled some bad moments. I am fully ready to do this. Asna returned to her sadistic persona as she smiled coldly, plus, it feels nice knowing that the exact sealing hall will be used for someone who deserves it. If Nemo's alter ego wasn't so **tty and hellbent on killing them right after he was awakened, she would have minded sealing him since that wasn't a fate she wished on anyone. Good thing my main consciousness had yet to arrive at the Elementals galaxy. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix requested Candace to bring his main consciousness and real body back to the wormhole. He knew that this had to be finished as fast as possible so he could send the sealed consciousness of Nemo's alter ego with his main body to the Elementals galaxy. He had no plans on keeping the real earring with a mere weakling clone. 15 days later. The SG Alliance had just celebrated conquering the entire Revria N1 solar system. Besides some runaway demons in Lumurus planet, this solar system could be said to be placed on an airtight lockdown. It made it impossible for anything or anyone to leave it without alarming the appropriate authorities. After securing such a stronghold for themselves, the SG Alliance started preparing for spreading their troops across the 7th demon realm, Tartarus. Meanwhile, Felix was busy with his own project. He could be seen inside his main spaceship, the Eternal Nautilus, which was docked outside of the wormhole leading to the other side. He had to carry the process on this side to avoid dealing with the Darkins, as he had no clue if they were still camping near the wormhole or not. Do you trust me? Felix asked with a solemn tone as he eyed Nemo. Eeeeeeee. Nemo nodded enthusiastically without a shred of doubt in his eyes. Good. Felix patted his head with a loving look. To avoid alerting Nemo's alter ego, he never told him about their sealing plan and he had no intentions of telling him now. Without delay, Felix removed the sun disk earring and placed it on a table, then, he opened the spatial gate and jumped inside with Nemo. As a spatial divine equipment, it was habitable, unlike the spatial cards. When Felix opened his eyes, he couldn't help but feel his butthole tightening up reflexively at the sight of the 4 guardian statues and the intricate floating platform. Asna wanted to chuckle at his reaction, but her PTSD activated and made her be as quiet as a mouse. When Felix sensed that she was having a panic attack, he comforted her, "It's okay, we will be out in a second." Asna closed her eyes shut and tried her best to focus only on Felix's voice and ignore everything else. This helped her ease the panic attack and regain control over her emotions. While some prisoners might feel nostalgic to return to their prison cells, Asna felt nothing but utter hatred. Eeeeeeee. Nemo jumped from Felix's lap and started running around with a curious but excited expression at such an unfamiliar environment. Felix let him do as he pleased. Knowing that the sealing hall could be activated only by fulfilling one condition. Let's run it back one time. You only have one chance at this. Thor said with a stern tone. I know. Felix nodded. First I will place Nemo on the platform and then destroy the link between him and his alter ego. When they get separated both physically and spiritually, they will both be semi-unconscious due to the trauma on their soul. I will take advantage of that duration and activate the sealing hall. When the process near the end, I will save Nemo. You have to be fast and precise. You will probably be given merely a second or less before his alter ego readjust himself. Hormungandr warned, he might use that moment to blow your soul with his spiritual pressure. I will make sure that never happens. Felix cracked his knuckles. Let's begin. 1299 The plan to get rid of Nemo's alter ego. 2. Felix teleported next to Nemo and picked him up, then, he hovered towards the platform and placed him in the center. No matter what happens, don't move, okay? Felix said with a serious tone. Eeeeeeee. Nemo nodded his head and sat on all four akin to a cat. Felix returned to his position, putting a fair distance between himself and the platform, then, he created a gemstone and placed it on the ground next to him. He cast a spatial spell on the gemstone, creating a grey runic hex above it. But, this hex seemed turned off as it did nothing to the gemstone. What is he up to? Why do I have a bad feeling? Nemo's alter ego kept getting agitated as his instincts tingled like crazy at this unknown situation he was in. But, no matter how hard he thought about it, he just couldn't find any method that would allow Felix to harm him. After all, he was a Unigen and feared nothing in this universe but the universe itself. This created conflict within himself as his instincts were saying one thing while his rationality was saying another. Oblivious to Nemo's alter ego's thoughts, Felix took a deep breath and manifested the concept Destruction Trident. He marked the spiritual link between Nemo and his alter ego and then hurled the trident in Nemo's direction. Eeeeeee. Nemo's survival instincts were activated the moment he saw the flying trident, but he trusted wholeheartedly that Felix would never do anything to harm him. Dodge it, you bastard! Dodge it! Dodge it! The same couldn't be applied to his alter ego as he kept screaming in his ears with a maddened tone. He had no clue what this trident was going to do to them, but his instincts warned him that it was going to be pleasant. Alas, Nemo remained affixed on his position while giving Felix a curious look, seemingly asking him about what game he was playing with him. Felix merely gave him an apologetic look, knowing that this wasn't going to be painless at all. Whoosh! In a split second, the crimson trident went through Nemo's body and exited from the other side resembling a ghost going through him. Eeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee agonizing squeeze like his guts were being ripped from his stomach. It was understandable when both his soul and body were being ripped apart in half to accommodate both consciousnesses after the separation. Although he was squealing in pain, Nemo still remained on the platform, which made Felix's heart twist and curls at the notion of putting Nemo through all of this while he still listened to his request. Focus. He is coming out, you should start the sealing process. Thor called out loud after seeing Nemo's physical body turn into a blob of pitch-black darkness before cutting off right from the center. One side had green eyes and the other had red eyes, they were both trying to pull away from the other, hastening the separation process even more. When Felix saw this, he extended 2 fingers forward and began reciting with a loud tone a peculiar-sounding language. His voice was low and powerful, each word imbued with a weight that seemed to move mountains. As he continued, the air around him grew thick with energy. Shadows seemed to writhe and twist in the corners of the sealing room, and the temperature dropped several degrees. Felix ignored it all, his focus solely on the chant. He spoke louder now, his voice ringing out with a commanding tone. Cling! 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 Suddenly, there was a sharp noise of metal chains clinging in the air. This was exactly what was going on as the purplish chains, that were connected with the platform and held by the 4 statues, were beginning to tighten up at a moderate pace. This caused the hovering platform to get lifted up higher and higher. As the purplish chains were getting tightened up, the peculiar inscriptions on the guardians began to illuminate brightly from the base of their legs into their heads. When they were fully illuminated, the light traveled to the inscriptions on the purplish chain, causing each word to pop off individually. It kept going until the light reached the platform from 4 directions and helped it cast a blinding light into the 2 pitch-black blobs. Spatial displacement. While he was reaching the last sentences of his chant, Felix snapped his finger abruptly, causing the left pitch-black blob to switch locations with the gemstone next to him instantly. The moment he spotted the gemstone next to the other pitch-black blob, Felix concluded the chant with a booming yell. On! The clinging purplish chains went silent and the light across the entire ceiling hall began dimming down, especially the blinding light on top of the platform. When the light completely disappeared and the ceiling hall seemed to have returned to normal, everyone had their eyes affixed on a floating pitch-black flickering flame in the center of the platform. We did it! Thud! Felix fell on his ass with a stunned expression, unable to believe the reality before him. Although he was told that it was going to work 100% as long as he didn't *ck up, it was still difficult for him to believe it. Who could blame him? He literally just did what those beings did to Asna, sealing an actual Unigen with nothing but a merely memorized chant. Even primogenitors and other Unigens would be left shocked if they ever heard about this. Arg, what did you do to me? Why can't I move? What did you do to me? Felix was forced to wake up from his daze after hearing Nemo's alter ego going absolutely batshare *T. Finally getting rid of your annoyance for good. Unafraid, Felix sneered as he stood back up on his feet. He was told by Asna that no matter how good Nemo's alter ego was, it would take him a very, very long time before he could figure out the same method that helped her free a tin bit of energy from the seal. What did you do? Isn't it obvious? Felix grinned widely. You have been sealed. Seal? Ha? Seal me? No one can seal a Unigen but them. Nemo's alter ego found the notion laughable as he knew from his memories that only those beings had the authority to create a seal strong enough to keep even Unigens locked shut. You are free to give it a try. Felix chuckled as he leaned down and picked Nemo up. While his alter ego was forcefully turned into a black flame, Nemo returned to his original raccoon form. A bit dazed, Nemo kept looking around him while enjoying Felix rubbing his back in a gentle manner. I am sorry for putting you through this, but it's over now. Felix apologized with a warm smile. Nemo was still clueless about the whole situation and he didn't seem to have any plans of questioning Felix. He merely laid back on his back and allowed Felix to rub his belly, completely forgetting about both the pain and his irritating alter ego. Void Rift. Void Black Hole. Void Annihilation. Greed Laws, I trade 80% of my energy for a wish to be freed from this. Wrath Laws, Strength Multiplication x10. Gluttony Laws, Devour. Evil Corruption. Meanwhile, Nemo's alter ego pulled absolutely no stop as he kept attempting to use all of his unlocked abilities to free himself from the seal. Alas, regardless of void laws, sins laws, or even the evil energy corruption, nothing was activated. It was like the sealing hall had utterly stripped him of his gifts, leaving him powerless. It can't be, huff, huff, this is impossible, Unigens can't be sealed, Unigens can't be sealed. Nemo's alter ego fell into a hard denial stage as he didn't give up on freeing himself with whatever trick was in his pocket. Poor thing, he will learn the hard way. Asna murmured as she recalled the first weak memories of being sealed. She left no stone unturned in an attempt to free herself, but alas, the seal was just too powerful. Call me when you are ready to merge with Nemo. Felix waved his hand at the black flame and teleported outside of the sealing hall under a fierce tirade of curses. Come back here and free me, you bastard! I will kill you. I swear I will end you and your whole alliance. Come back. Too bad for Nemo's alter ego, Felix was long gone, leaving him alone in this silent and somewhat creepy hall. The saying goes, FCK around and you will find out. It was at this moment that Nemo's alter ego realized that he really F'd up. 1300 Demonic Taming of Beasts/Monsters. Finally, a breather. Felix sighed in relief the moment he exited the Sundisk earring pocket dimension. With my lord's pride, I doubt he will give in and merge with Nemo even at the threat of eternal imprisonment. Candace uttered with a worried tone. Candace had decided to be an obedient servant to Felix for the sake of having her lust powers enhanced when Nimmo overthrew the paragon of sins. But with this development, she started to doubt if that was ever going to happen. His pride will get in the way for sure, but when he realizes that the sealing hall has the ability to slowly steal the prisoner's powers to fuel the seal's strength, he will have no option but to give up. Asna answered with a confident tone. The inaugural upload of this chapter took place via /n/ov/l/b/in. Asna knew that the side effect wasn't lasting, but it sure was going to scare Nimmo's alter ego, as he had no idea if his powers would ever return. I still can't believe those beings created such a complicated sealing hall and made its activation bound to a chant that anyone could recite. Felix remarked with a deep frown. The chant is useless without the sealing hall, and no one can create it besides those beings. So, knowing the chant is the same as having a key to an unobtainable chest. Lady Sphinx said, the fact that you obtained it is a much bigger mystery. I suppose so. Knowing that he wouldn't find any answers even if he dug deeper, Felix dropped the subject. Are you planning to restart your journey to the Elementals galaxy right now? Candace inquired. I will give Nimmo's alter ego 2 weeks to give up and merge with Nimmo. If he is still adamant, I will take him with me. Felix knew that the moment he stepped inside the Elementals galaxy, he wouldn't leave it until he made a breakthrough. This meant Nimmo's alter ego would stay with him for thousands of years, if not more, even if he came to his senses and wanted to merge with Nimmo. After all, Nimmo would be accompanying Felix's copy in the 7 demon realms, and there was no way for them to get together unless Formother Siasim made an exception. Felix was certain that wasn't happening anytime soon. So, he delivered his ultimate to Nimmo's alter ego and closed the consciousness link with the Sundisk earring the moment he heard a series of insults thrown at him. *KOKOK 1 month later. Felix stayed true to his word and took off to the Elementals galaxy with the Sundisk earring. Obviously, he found no luck with Nimmo's alter ego and the situation remained as it was. Everyone was cool with this, even Lord Koaz. That's because he also wanted Nimmo and his alter ego to get back together without anyone overpowering the other. Nimmo's alter ego didn't want to just merge but completely eradicate his soft spot in the process, which would give birth to truly the evilest paragon of sins in existence. Meanwhile, the SG Alliance had already kicked off their main conquest journey as they sent an unfathomable number of geared-up fleets toward the nearest habitable solar systems. With Queen Danika's information, they knew much about their destinations and what to expect from them. While they were actively invading Tartarus territory, the right arm of Prince Beelzebub had just arrived near Revria N1's solar system with his subordinates. The moment they stepped inside the Scallions' territory, their existence was picked up by the radar. Sir, our radars have picked an unusual invader near Omanda's meteor belt. The crewman responsible reported the news to his supervisor. It does look unusual, switch to the nearest camera to the invader and give me a complete read on it. The supervisor ordered. The crewman did as he was commanded. When the images were sent back, everyone was left stunned at the final results before them. A colossal and terrifying creature, a space monster unlike any other, was showcased right in front of their shocked eyes. It was as massive as a moon, and it resembled a long fleshy worm with a gaping maw, a black hole of immense proportions that served as the creature's mouth. It possessed demonic features as it was surrounded by a massive cape of red mist, and its tiny eyes were as red as blood. Yet, what shocked the crewmen the most was the fact that this disgusting monstrous worm was exiting from a wormhole. Was that wormhole there before? One of the crewmen murmured. You know full well that it wasn't. The supervisor's expression got stoic immediately as he reached out to his AP bracelet and called out loud, Red code! Red code! We are being invaded. The 10 rulers and inner circle leaders swiftly joined an emergency meeting the moment they received the news. Is it the demons? King Local asked. We have to send scouts to check. Queen Alfreda narrowed her eyes, but, how can this worm-like monster create wormholes? Well, I always wondered if my ancestors' bloodline has managed to give birth to non-intelligent creatures capable of using spatial abilities. High Chieftain Lakaka replied, I guess they were hiding here all along. Just like the beasts with multiple bloodline abilities, there were bound to be some kind of beasts with spatial abilities around the universe since Lord Dune had many descendants like the other primogenitors. In fact, there could even be beasts with destruction abilities, hiding in isolation and saving the universe from an unspoken terror. It doesn't look anything like your race or Lord Dune. Queen Allura wondered, do you think it was demonized? Based on its disgusting appearance and the red mist around it, there is a high possibility. Felix chimed in, but, we will find out the truth after the scouts arrive. The scouts didn't take long to arrive near the slow-moving monstrous worm. With their advanced anti-surveillance system, they got closer to the beast and began scanning its entire humongous body. They ended up finding a medium-sized lean black spaceship parked right on the top surface of the monstrous worm. The spaceship seemed somewhat old-dated compared to the Scallions' current generation, but it was still an interstellar spaceship. When the scout zoomed on the spaceship and spotted a uniquely shaped B logo on its side, everyone uttered at the same time, Beelzebub's troops. Looks like we still ended up alerting him. Queen Alfreda said. It doesn't matter, he was bound to find out about us eventually. Emperor Local disclosed, I am more interested in their ability to tame such a massive space-eating worm and use it for their travel. Queen Danica had already told them that authoritative demons were capable of enslaving animalistic demons, making them obedient to their commands as long as they feed them purities. But to do this for such a massive beast? It was truly mind-boggling, as even the Alliance couldn't control such kinds of monsters. The spaceship is lifting off from the beast. The scout reported abruptly. The black spaceship took off at the speed of light in the direction of planet Gorena in front of everyone. Yet, no one bothered to look in its direction as their eyes were affixed on the gigantic fleshy worm reversing back inside the wormhole. After it disappeared inside of it, the wormhole collapsed on itself and the space deformity was gone, turning the area desolate again. Since Queen Danica hadn't told us about those worms, it only means that the demons have recently begun demonizing and taming them. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly, warn our troops to be careful of such demonized creatures. God knows what else have those demons tamed. The leaders always had a sense of superiority when dealing with demons since they were too advanced in technology. But after this finding, they had a bad feeling that the demons could have tamed much more dangerous monsters than their weapons. What do we do with that spaceship? It must be a scouting squad sent by Prince Beelzebub. Since Prince Beelzebub was generous to send us some of his subordinates, then it would be impolite not to welcome them with open arms. Felix smirked faintly. Everyone shared the same creepy smile as they knew exactly what Felix meant. Unbeknownst to the warm welcome that awaited him, Malgrath could be seen sitting akin to a demon lord on the captain's chair inside the cockpit. His demonic subordinates were sitting around him silently, not touching a single button on the board before them. This image seemed weird, like the demons were out of place. It wasn't far-fetched to call it that, since this spaceship didn't really belong to them but was built by the most technologically advanced race in the 7 demon realms. This chair is so uncomfortable, it's like those bastards are making them like this to spite us. Malgrath asked with an irritated tone, are we close yet? We will arrive at Gorena in less than an hour. His subordinate answered after reading the distance from the monitor before him. Finally, we get to see those F***ers who ruined my king's precious harvesters. I will make sure to demonize them myself and watch them starve to death. Malgrath stated with a murderous tone.